Yeah, well, let's try again. I would have liked to actually fix this image into when you pause the screen, there's an image, and that would have been able to put the image also into the video, but apparently, instead of just being able to choose the image that you've downloaded, you have to go and look into all the 8,000 pictures I have on my mobile apparently to find it. Of course, so sickening of this idiotic bullshit world. And just instead of just have a button where you can see where the image is, then you need to just go look and investigate in 8,000 pictures and see if you can find the image you just downloaded, right? And just instead of just being able to push here, I want to, like the good old days, like Satan wasting our time on so many levels. It's so sickening. Anyway, getting back to things because, complaining doesn't work, in regards of, because the bullshitters continue to pull out their bullshit and it's not going to change even if you pointed out, because these people are clearly led by the devil and his demons, because many of these programmers are absolutely retarded, filling their pockets with bullshit money in regards of, and you can go hours and hours and hours in regards to how evil people are in this world, instead of just making things so they actually work, like the good old days with Windows 2000, and when programmers actually made programs that actually was functional and kind of had the same, where in regards to working, instead of having another interface, it kind of was a lot of the same, so you kind of could just use use the things, the tools for actually doing what you wanted, instead of actually trying to sort out and figure out where things are and this and that. Anyway, getting back to the image, here we go. So now this is not the full image I found out, but it's the full image from the video, this video from the Papist, in regards of Ignatius Loyola, the first Jesuit general, superior general of you know, the Jesuits, the special soldiers of the devil. Anyway, so here we have the image from the movie, and it's like looking at it, it's actually not very good quality. Now, in the middle, you can see there's like Augsburg, and so that was a little more clear in the better resolution. You could see the second beast to the right of the book of Revelation depicted as the Jesuits. You could see the first beast to the left in regards to the papacy and all the monks and priestess and whatnot, although still kind of a little unclear in regards to the image. But anyway, so the papists used this image just in regards to the Council of Trent. Now, the Council of Trent was in the 1545, I think, was the opening of the Council of Trent. So using the image in regards to that, I thought the image might be pretty close to that. It looked like German depiction, like the rest of the pictures from that period and all that. But it seems like it's from the 1632, in regards to the wall where the Augsburg and the Swedish king and all that. Although on the first image you don't see the Swedish king, but on the second image you do see the Swedish king. And that was the thing, that was text. That was text to these images, and I've translated some of it. And the first image, I would absolutely totally agree with the information. And it's actually interesting that, the ideas that is put, the views are something I could have written, because it's true. It's so, it's just incredible how much truth they have in this flyer in regards to the first and the second beast, in regards to how the first beast gives its power and dominion to the second beast and all that. It's and of course, yeah. So the confirmation is that the second beast is depicted as the Jesuits. It is the and I'm like, I didn't find many sources in regards to that. So this was kind of a first source where I see the idea portrayed that the Jesuits is actually the second beast. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to know what is actually the source for this, because that's what I have come to believe as well. So I'm like, where's this source from? When is it from, and all that, and further information in regards to things. And it seems to be a German source, but apparently this source seems to also have connections to Sweden. So yeah. So anyway, so the first beast and the second beast, according to the Book of Revelation and all that. And this is the documentary that I got that from, although I have better quality photos now, much better quality than I have here. I need to upload them to my webpage at some point. There is one picture that seems to be the very best quality of this picture from a Chinese source, but I can't copy the image. I think it's like an image based on images. They use some kind of bullshit thing, so you just can't just right click and copy the image. But you can do a lot of zooming and all that. But I don't, the only thing I can really do, I think, is take a print screen of it. I don't think I can really, sadly copy, the original files, because that's just how it is today. They make it worse and worse in regards of copying things and this and that. But anyway, so here we have the second beast, zoomed into. But again, I have better sources now in regards of it. Now the thing is, I have these pictures for a long time, and I couldn't figure out in regards to where these sources were coming from, and I couldn't get any help. The papist didn't want to help me, and in regards to the sources and all that, I couldn't figure out in regards of it. So, so the thing is, so I used this application, which apparently doesn't work on this browser and all that, apparently in regards of Firefox. It's an older version of the browser, and in regards of Firefox, because the new Firefox version is just stupid and all that. And again, why fix? The programmers always seems to want to fix things over and over again. And usually when they do that, for the most part, they ruin things, as they tend to do always. They do bullshit and more bullshit and all that. But the thing is, in here, there's backgrounds, which doesn't work apparently here, but maybe actually you can. No, it actually. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe it's because there's some issues in regards of it. Usually I would do the HTTP, but because of the radio stations and all that. But there was some other issues, and the only way to hack the planet was to force it to, in regards of getting the backgrounds and all that. It didn't do HTTPS and all that, so I had to hack the planet and all that. But yeah, so when I actually was doing these things, like in regards to the browser, yeah, there we go, okay. So this, of course, in regards to the config in general, we need to put that to 100, because I don't know why the programmer would set that to 20 instead of 100. But yeah, programmers are not always, they have their own way of things, apparently. Whereas you try to put some sanity into them, and yeah. But anyway, this guy that actually programmed Audio Motion actually did a lot of good stuff, but there's clearly some issues still that needs to be fixed and sorted out. So, and I'm not entirely sure in regards of seems to have become a little silent in regards of things. So I haven't really further gotten things as I want. It's clearly not as I wanted yet, but yeah. Anyway, so now you can see all the backgrounds and all that. But the thing is, when I was searching for like pictures that I needed to find in regards of getting them to in regards of without all this that, and oh yeah, I used it. So after doing that, I recalled, well, I should be able to do it with other images as well, and I did. So I actually found further sources, a lot of good sources, after doing that. So I have a lot of information to go by now. It's like in the past with the images, I just didn't have anything to go by. I didn't know. I really didn't. Besides, it looks German, right? I don't really know what it looks like. It's from the 16th century, but and it looks like it's like typical German Protestantism and all that. But besides that, I really didn't have anything to go by. But of course, after actually using the Google thing and all that, I actually did end up having something to go by. And yeah, so so now I have more than enough to actually look into. And of course, I have this PDF file as well and all that. Let's see if this actually works. Wow, it's like... Is it like uploading 60 megabyte or something like that? Why is it uploading? It should be downloading. I don't know in regards of the uploading thing, in regards of... I don't know if that's correct, if it's actually uploading so much. Why would it be uploading so much? I don't know. Oh yeah, of course we are, live streaming, but still, why would it be uploading so much data for just a image? It's like, anyway, whatever the case, you guys can go there if you want. And there's a lot of information, lots of files over here, Bibles, Christian history, lots of things. It's all free. Just you can go and look it up and edit all the files. You can go into Hallelujah Scripture, for example. If it will, and go in here and just add all files, and then it should be able to play and all that. Although, this is not the fastest mobile and all that, so it is what it is. Let's see here. So it should. There we go. So yeah, so this is the thing, And so there's like the Torah and other things and all that. Lots of more than enough information of things. Anyway, let's close this down. Anyway, so I did, found some more, we were pretty much having a good amount of information. And yeah, and now I have this 100-page article thing in regards of it. Where I can further, and I've been looking into this king, Gustavus Adolphus the second, and great, and like trying to get a little more data and all that. Interestingly enough, he seems to be the greatest king of the Swedes, and yet he seems to, it seems to be the greatest pride of the Swedes in regards of a king is this guy. And yet his child, Christina, is the greatest shame of Sweden. So you have the greatest pride of Sweden and you have the greatest shame of Sweden, just in, very close together. It's just absolutely terrible to see what happened to his child, which became the Queen of Sweden. Absolutely terrible to see how she became a Roman papist, like pissing on her earthly father's grave, That's just terrible. That's just absolutely terrible. You never know what's behind people's, in regards of what is in their hearts. But she went, apparently, she became a Roman Catholic, moved to Rome, and I found a plaque thing or whatever, remembrance things in regards of it and all that. So the greatest pride of the Swedish kings is Gustavus Adolphus, and the greatest shame I think they pretty much had was the queen, his daughter. Just terrible, absolutely terrible. Anyway, acknowledgements, the transcriptions of all the 47 illustrated broadsheets that have been analyzed in this study has been facilitated by the digital platform Transcribos, where all the illustrated broadsheets have been processed. Transcribos is a digital platform for historical documents, where AI-driven text recognition has made it possible to transcribe all text sections of the examined illustrated broadsheets in a matter of days. I'm like, why didn't it's like, I don't understand all these goody things from the past, and no one actually, like like the book of Martin Luther against the Roman Papacy, an institution of the devil. Like, not a single Dane actually translated that into Danish, as far as I know. Like, you only had 500 years to translate it, right? And yet nothing. It just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, but of course, now having AI, it can help us to get a translation of it when other people don't want to do it, because people, many of these scholars are full of demons and they have no clue in regards of, and they were pretty much just working for the devil, many of them, which is very sad. So they don't see the importance of this great book of Martin Luther being released, as I understand it, at the opening of Trend. And why can't I get this so I can move it? Well, because these things are just stupid as usual. Anyway, so let's see here. So where all the illustrated broadsheets have been processed, Transcribos is a digital platform for historical documents where the AI-driven text recognition has made it possible to transcribe all text sections of the examined illustrated broadsheets in a matter of days, which has saved a lot of time, several weeks, compared to what it would have taken to manually transcribe the text from the illustrated broadsheets. But again, why haven't anyone done it already, A PDF file of each illustrated broadsheet was uploaded to the Transcribos platform, where a text recognition model performed the first transcriptions. These transcriptions were later read through by the author of the study, who manually corrected all discovered errors that were made by the program. That being said, there still is possibility that some words have been transcribed incorrectly and that some mistranscription gone unnoticed by the author. This study encourages everyone from happy amateur historians and first-term history students to established professors of history to try Transcribos. It's like, why encourage them to? I thought he would say something in regards to if there's something wrong or something like that, Actually, I did see something in regards of AI, in regards of Danish AI to get like Gothic letters into standard letters, so it actually could fix old information into nowadays Latin letters, so people can actually figure out how to read it and all that. But that was costing money, as far as I recall. Anyway, here I would like to take the opportunity to thank everyone at the Faculty of History at Uppsala University, as well as my fellow history students for these past 2 years. It has been good fun, and you have helped me improve a lot over these past 2 years, although I still have a lot to improve in terms of academic thinking, writing, and well, basically everything academic. Well, I guess, you can always become a bullshitter, right? Like many of those people in the academic world who are keeping all the gold away from the people, right? Anyway, I now know things that I did not know before, which I'll say is a steep or step in the right direction and a success in itself. Once again, thank you for helping me improve myself. As a heavy metal fan, I might have included some heavy metal reference in the study. I hope that my fellow metal fans will be able to spot them. Well, like, it's just, it's like, oh, well, anyway, that's actually in regards of maybe this guy was interested in the topic because actually there's some heavy metal songs in regards of it, which actually kind of saddening to see that the only songs that I could really find, besides there actually might be a song that is hidden away by the university in some sense. I couldn't find the lyrics and all that. In regards to this guy, in regards to this Adolphus, Gustavus Adolphus, but besides that, the only songs I really could find was pretty much heavy metal songs. Those two pretty much heavy metal songs in regards of Adolphus. I don't know if I can actually. Yeah, well, I guess I lost them in regards, but I guess I could find them pretty easily, and just But it is kind of heavy metal thing, But it does have some truth in the lyrics for sure, which it does have some in regards of the Roman papist in one of them. The other one, it just has in regards of the European armies and all of that. So it's kind of it doesn't kind of points out in regards of doesn't totally point out that it's the Roman papist, right? But so anyway, see if we can find one of the songs here. So here we go. Sabaton, the Lion from the North. That's what he was called. So he got the title of Lion from the North in regards of this guy. But anyway, this is heavy metal, so we can try to have it in the background here. But as you can hear, this is kind of heavy metal. But maybe this guy that apparently is into heavy metal, maybe he listened to this thing, and maybe that was the thing that made him, go look and in regards to having some interest in the topic, which again is very sad because it's kind of a very important topic, that it's kind of like, why don't people know more about, like there should have been much more interest into it. It's just, yeah, but anyway. He's also, as we can see, using Latin letters, which, I would never do that, but people love, using Latin letters and words and all that. Let's see, abstracts, acknowledgement, figures. I think we pretty much, are we finished with the figures or what? Yeah, that's number 3, and I guess that's number 4, I guess. So here we have, if we actually just took the lyrics in itself and not the heavy rock metal, you could maybe make a pretty decent song, without all this terrible heavy metal. A time of religion and war. Legends tell the tale of a lion. This beast in the shape of a man with a dream to rule sea and land. And all those who stand in his way will die by God and victorious arms. But anyway, it goes into in regards to talking about the papist. It also has some Latin, See here, I'm going a little forward here. See here if we can find the Roman Catholic. Maybe they have the text in the. See here if they have the text in the. Yep. Okay. A storm over Europe unleashed, dawn of war, a trail of destruction. The power of Rome won't prevail. See the Catholic shiver and shake. So you actually have some truth in this. And who knows? Maybe he, being into heavy metal and all that, he probably have heard this song in Sweden. Because it's kind of seemed to be a pretty popular band and all that. So anyway, we got this thing sorted out in the Latin. Then we have some introduction, aim and questions, historical context, Sweden in the 30-Year War, previous research on illustrated broadsheets. I don't know why they call them broadsheets. Like, isn't like a ship when it's like make a broad, what do you call the broad thing? What is that? We need to shoot. What is it called? A broad. I can't remember what it's called. It's called something in regards of giving the opponent a broad. What's it called? A broad. I can't remember. Anyway, it's called something. Theoretical framework, protection, selling conditions for early modern rule, legitimation and representation, satira and charactera, Miles Christianus, methods, categorization of analyzing, source material, a brief presentation of the illustrated broadsheet and the illustrated broadsheets from the Oscar Planner collection. The illustrated broadsheets from the Oscar Planner collection analyzes the portrait of Sweden and Gustav II Adolf. I still don't understand why he does, Gustavus Adolphus II, instead of all this Gustav II Adolf, it's just. Anyway, confessional protection selling arguments, Miles Christianus as protection selling arguments, the use of biblical characters, protection selling arguments after the death of Gustav II Adolf, non-confessional protection selling arguments, Gustav II Adolf as general, Tilly's worst nightmare. So that's the Tilly's was the Roman papist, as far as I recall, which lost the battle in 1632. Sweden's military capacity, displaying situations before and after Swedish protection. Gustavus Adolphus II as a military leader. Gustavus Adolphus II as a political leader. Collaboration with Catholics, papists, I guess. Actually, regards to calling them Catholics might be the wrong way to actually, but that's what they're known by, right? Like the Orthodox, Roman Catholics and the Orthodox, and both are really like misbetraying because the Orthodox are and the Roman Catholics, both of them are worshiping the devil. Anyway, protection selling arguments after the death of Gustavus Adolphus II. Chapter summary and discussion: the portrayal of Sweden and Gustavus Adolphus II. Confessional protection selling arguments. Non-confessional protection selling arguments. Analyzes the portrayal of Sweden's enemies. Confessional enemies, dissidents, aggressors. Confessional satirical portrayals. In league with Satan. Incapable political and military leaders. Magdeburg, and that's a city as far as I recall. Satirical portrayals and the use of characters. Summary: the portrayals of Sweden enemies. Confessional protection, selling arguments, and non-confessional, and conclusion. And apparently, in regards of all these things, actually, I do wonder in regards of the conclusion might be, actually reading the conclusion might actually be helpful, maybe instead of. Anyway, a summary, maybe the summary might also be pretty good, actually, to just get a summary of things, in the beginning. Suggestions for future research, bibliographic sources, literature, and all that. So, figures, apparently this is like kind of information of the figures. Die Augsburgische Confession, page 24. Augustiata audio per diem liberata Teutschku enstig ward Augsburg die Stadt, Gott durch Gott ihr geholfen hat. Page 26. Wahrhaftige Relation and gewisse beschrieben von den ossischen Kirchentürmen wie sie denn, something of that nature, Aprilin das Dorf Rieden überfallen, page 28. Okay. Das Wort des Herrn, page 30, Klagelied über den Hüppe trauerten jedoch glorwürdigsten und seligsten Tod des durchlichtigsten, großmächtigsten Fürsten und Herren Gustav VI Adolphi. 6, 5, 6, yeah. Page 33. Das werdet liebet noch. Page 37. Dat Jesuiten Lenterfang. 39. I have no, in regards to all the German, it's, I don't know. Schweizischer Bund mit Zweien zur Fürsten Sachsen und Brandenburg. 42. Abriss der Fürmestenstädt Festungen und Pes in Deutschland, welche ihm König Gustav Adolf zu Schweden etc. and so on, teils mit Akkord, teils mit Gewalt eingenommen. 43. Diageticum suicicum schwedische Weguhr. 44. Die betränkten Stadt Augsburg. Okay, 47. Die durch Gottes Gnade elektiket Stadt Augsburg. Der König, that was like 47. Der König Majestät zu Schweden und zur Fürstel durch zu Sachsen and so on, wohlbestallte Apothek weiter den fressenden Wurm. 47. Wäre Kontrafaktur und Kürze beschreiben des Einzugswohlsinn der Durenliste großmachtigste Fürst und Herr Gustavus Adolphus der Schweden, Gothen und Winden, König den in der Tübene Matthi, am Tag Benedikte des 1632 Jahr zu Nürnberg gehalten. 52. Trauersündet über den Krieg und Sieg ihrer königlichen Majestät in Schweden and so forth. 50, page 56. Wahrer Kontrafaktur und Bildnis der hier auf Erden bedrängten und in höchster Gefahr schwebenden, doch aber liegt in lösenden, christlichen und rechtgläubigen Kirchen. 62. I wonder how many pages there actually is in regards of then images. Der Warner 64, you know, in regards of speaking German, it could be pretty cool in regards of speaking. Like, the German language is kind of cool in some sense, you know, at least in some ways. Like, well, you know, that Jesuiten monarchy, yeah, it was like the Roman guy was educated by the Jesuits and all that, and Jesuits are the special soldiers of the devil. 60 Konfekt, 68. Das Tally Konfektbanquet gehalten bei Leipzig den 7. September anno 1631, page 69. Der türlichen Sauf Panket ben nicht essensu af Schenberg I mit einem Richtung, page 70. I do wonder in regards to all these flyers that was used in Germany. Wouldn't they be like sent to Sweden as well, like telling how things were in regards to what was, wouldn't they actually have like Swedish versions of them, The armer pilgrimerende mimmertyr, I don't know. Der Jesuiter samt des General Tilly nyligere Zusammenkunft in einer Kungelstruben zu ach. Tillys Klostergelübde, egentlige Kontrafaktor wir König Maisus Weiden, etc., den alten Korporal Thülen. Okay, that was at least some of them. Okay, well, is that all? Wasn't that? That's only 25. Wasn't that more than 25? But didn't it say like? It says 47 illustrated broadsheets, but I don't see 47. I only see 25. Apparently, that's maybe there's more in regards of. Number 1, introduction. The 30 Years' War is by many scholars considered to be the most destructive and extensive conflict in the 7th century Europe. I don't know if this guy actually knows in regards of biblical foundation in regards of the beast and all that. But anyway, at its core, it was a confessional conflict between the Catholics or the Papists and the Protestants of the so-called Holy Roman Empire. And in many ways, it can be viewed as the culmination of the confessional wars and disputes that had haunted Europe since the publication of Luther's 95 Theses in 1517. The longer the war went on, the more it turned into a competition for the political and military power in Europe. In 1630, Protestant Sweden entered in the war. Entered into the war, I would think. Anyway, and I think he might actually have been a Calvinist, as I understand, in regards of the Swedish king, which is not a bad thing in regards of, not believing in the cookie Jesus and all that. The Papist cookie Jesus, that the Lutherans, the so-called Gnesio Lutherans, the so-called real Lutherans, went backward and clung to Roman Catholic leaven. So in 1630, Protestant Sweden entered in the war, a decision that was motivated on political as well as religious grounds. And we have like 1, 2, 3, right? Anyway, at the time of the Swedish intervention, the Swedish state was a fiscal military state. I don't know what a fiscal military, like fiscal was a fiscal military state with a war experienced permanent army and navy. The cost of maintaining this army meant that the Swedish king had to find allies who were willing to provide financial support in order to keep this military campaign underway. Not long after the Swedish army had arrived in Germany, an extensive media that's interesting. A media campaign of pro-Swedish propaganda was launched, a campaign that would reach its peak 2 years later in 1632. The early modern media formats used in this media campaign consisted of various pamphlets, tracts, and broadsheets. Interesting. Pamphlets, tracts, and broadsheets, okay, and were used to promote Sweden and its king Gustav II Adolf. Well, Gustavus Adolphus II. Anyway, inspired by Jan Gleed's notion about the early modern fiscal military state as protection-selling enterprises. This study is interested in exploring this pro-Swedish media campaign. what I'm interested in regards of is, that they seemingly knew a lot of truth. Pointing out that the second beast is the Jesuits is kind of, you don't see that kind of. And the thing is, if this was like a media campaign going around, the people would, have been told. And in regards to the idea of the second beast being the Jesuits should kind of have been around, if, yeah. Arguing that it, among many things, was used to promote Swedish protection selling by examining German illustrated broadsheets, one of the media formats used in pro-Swedish media campaign. This study hopes to find out how pro-Swedish illustrated broadsheets were used to sell Swedish protection to the German Protestants of the so-called Holy Roman Empire. This will be achieved by searching for protection-selling arguments in the pro-Swedish illustrated broadsheets published in the so-called Holy Roman Empire during the first 3 years of the Swedish invention in the 30 Years' War, 1630 to 1633. Well, that's in regards of, the times that they're doing the things, right? Anyway, the pro-Swedish illustrated broadsheets can be understood as a conscious attempt to create a positive image of the Swedish war intervention, which would facilitate the attempts to find allies in the so-called Holy Roman Empire, although it is unknown how much influence the Swedish state had in the manufacturing process. They were a political tool that was used to shape and spread a positive image of Sweden that would be beneficial for the Swedish state's political ambitions in Europe. And the question is still, who actually made the image of the two beasts in regards of having the papacy on one side and the Jesuits on the other side? Is kind of very interesting would be interesting to know who actually did that, but I guess we might not know either, because it seems like that, although it is unknown how much influence the Swedish states had in the manufacturing process, but the question is, who actually did manufacture it, some Germans or something like that, anyway, Marshall, 2009, among the religious conflicts prior to the outbreak of the 30 Years' Wars in 1618, the Peasants' War in Germany. Yeah, I guess that was where Luther did a lot of, did really, really bad in regards to getting those 100,000 peasants butchered and all that. No, it was really not not one of his good things. For sure, that was one of his very, very bad things. 1524 to 1525, and the civil wars in the last half of the 16th century. For more reading about the Swedish intervention in the 30 Years' War and the 30 Years' War in general, see Harrison 20, whatever. Anyway, doesn't matter. Okay. And thus a way of promoting Sweden as a competent seller of protection to their targeted audience, the German Protestants of the so-called Holy Roman Empire. In this study, the ambition is to explore how the protection-selling arguments in the illustrated broadsheets portrayed Sweden as a military and political actor that could offer protection to its allies and co-religionists, but also how they were used to promote Swedish military and political leadership against their common enemies. Considering the impact that religion had on all aspects of society in the 17th century Europe, the study will make a distinction between the confessional protection-selling arguments and the non-confessional protection-selling arguments of the illustrated broadsheets, hoping this will cast light on how and when the religious arguments were used and what aspects they emphasized. The hope is that this study will help contribute to a more extensive understanding of early modern fiscal military states. I still don't know what that fiscal military, thing states, and how they used early modern media formats as a method to promote their protection selling business in order to attract potential buyers and thus increase their political influence abroad. Okay. Aim and questions. As the targeted audience of the illustrated broadsheets were German Protestants. So here we and again, I do wonder, didn't some of these broadsheets also come back to Sweden, or maybe the Danish king would have liked to see in regards to Christian the Fourth, or, anyway. As the targeted audience of the illustrated broadsheets were German Protestants and consequently not subordinates of Gustav II Adolf, but of German Protestant rulers, the aim of this study is to examine how the content of the pro-Swedish illustrated broadsheets tries to encourage the German Protestants of the so-called Holy Roman Empire to buy the protection that the Swedish states was selling. In order to achieve the aim of the study, the following questions will be asked to the source material. How is the image of Sweden and Gustav II Gustavus Adolphus II portrayed in the illustrated broadsheets, and what are they portrayed to represent? How is the image of Sweden's enemies portrayed in the illustrated broadsheets, and what are they portrayed to represent? Well, they are portrayed to represent what is the truth in regards of things. But anyway, 1-2. Okay, yeah, that was 1-1, right? 1-2. Historical context: Sweden and the 30 Years' War. On the 26th May 1618, and apparently they're still using two different calendars in regards to the Swedes and the so-called Holy Roman Empire thing. Anyway, on the 26th May, because one are using the Julian calendar, the other one is using the Gregorian calendar, and both of the calendars are Roman bullshit. But anyway, on the 23 May 1618, two Catholic Lord Regents were thrown out of a window in Harakani Castle in Prague. Prague, isn't that kind of in, what is that called? I guess that's also close in regards to the Hussites, right? But anyway, this event, called the Defenestration of Prague, is generally regarded as the event that set off the destructive 30 Years' War. In the first years of the conflict, the Catholic forces, under the leadership of the formidable General Johann Caesar Claes Tilly, who by the early 1630s was one of Europe's most celebrated and feared military commanders, and a military entrepreneur, Albert von Wallenstein, enjoyed a series of victories where they managed to defeat a large part of the Protestant opposition, and in 1629, a total Catholic victory seemed inevitable. The Holy Roman Emperor Ferdinand is like the so-called Holy Roman Emperor Ferdinand II, a strict Catholic ruler, wanted to erase all evangelical faith from his empire. Well, all Protestants, right? In the 1629, when most of the Protestant opposition within the so-called Holy Roman Empire had been defeated, Ferdinand, with the support of the great stinking Pope, issued the Edict of Restitution, a law that demanded the return of all church lands and bishoprics secularized in Germany since 1552. It also reasserted an almost complete prohibition on Calvinism in Europe. In the empire. My bad. In regards to Calvinism, pretty much just Calvinism is pretty much also in regards to Zwinglianism, rejecting the cookie Jesus and all that. Anyway, the Edict of Restitution was because Calvinism and Zwinglianism pretty much kind of sorted out and became one. And also Melanchthon, who was a Lutheran, also kind of ended up. So overall, many Lutherans actually also went into, rejecting the cookie Jesus and all that. But you had these Gnesio Lutherans and all that. Anyway, terrible, terrible, terrible. But anyway, so the Edict of Restitution was a way of both achieving religious sovereignty and strengthening the position of Catholicism in the empire. However, it also made other states worried about the increasing power of the so-called Holy Roman Empire. Ferdinand II's decision to issue the Edict of Restitution meant that it had scorched any future chances of peace. And in the next couple of years, a chain of events took place that would change the course of the war. During the first decade of the 30 Years' War, Sweden did not intervene. Although the state was strictly Protestant, it was engaged in other conflicts which prevented it from intervening in the war. Although talks had been held both in 1619 to 1620 and in 1623 to 1625 to send aid to the Protestant war-waging parties in order to prevent an imperial military success. Yeah. They're kind of afraid that all Germany, all that area, would become Roman Catholic, and of course, Denmark should also have been fearing that, Sweden continued to be a Protestant nation, so that was good for Denmark pretty much. Sadly, still having conflict with Sweden and all that, but the Jesuits kind of wanted Sweden, Poland, and Spain to conquer Denmark and all that. That was one of their plans. They make a lot of plans, those bullshitters. But anyway, now of course Sweden did not become Catholic or Roman papist again, so I guess that was kind of good for Denmark still, even if we had our conflicts, Anyway, since the beginning of the 17th century, Sweden had been involved in a military conflict with the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, as well as waging. Another thing is Poland was actually becoming Protestant, but the Jesuits were very successfully in returning them to Roman popery. Anyway, so with the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, as well as waging war against Denmark in 1611 to 1613, and Russia 1609 to 1617, the war against Poland-Lithuania not only was struggle between the Swedish and Polish branches of the Vasa dynasty, but also a struggle for control of the Baltic Sea. The war, in which both sides experienced success and setbacks, was finally halted in 1629 with the Treaty of Altmark, which settled a 6-year-long truce between the two states. The treaty that had been meddled with the help of France meant that Sweden now could change focus and start to concentrate on the war in the so-called Holy Roman Empire. This was, and of course, they also ended the war with Denmark as well, although that was kind of more of a defeatist, but it seems like the Sweden got the upper hand in regards of Poland. So, but anyway, so this was the start. So first they settled it with Denmark, as I understood it, where Denmark actually ends up, gaining the, I guess, upper hand on that level. Although Sweden actually kind of, he actually pretty clever in regards of Adolphus, Gustavus Adolphus, seems to actually outsmart the Danish king at this point. But still, it's kind of a loose deal, so I understand it, on the Swedish. But then they gain the upper hand in regards to the Polish settlement. So anyway, then of course the Danish guy and Christian IV end up losing in regards to the conflict. He also wants to help the German Protestants and all that, and he kind of fails. And then the Swedish king kind of does what kind of do something that is much, he does what the Danish king couldn't do, pretty much. So anyway, so the war in which both sides experienced success and setbacks was finally halted in 1629 with the Treaty of Altmark, which settled a 6-year-long truce between the two states. The treaty that had been meddled with the help of France meant that the Sweden now could change focus and start to concentrate on the war in the so-called Holy Roman Empire. This was the start of future French-Swedish collaborations that in the forthcoming years would set a mark on the German conflict, so-called German conflict. It was first in 1628 when the Catholic forces were at the brink of winning the war and thus threatening Swedish interest in the Baltic Sea and the northern part of the so-called Holy Roman Empire that the Swedish state felt it necessary to intervene and send assistance to Denmark and to the defense of the city of Stralsund, whom Sweden signed a contract that stated that Sweden would help the city against Catholic attacks. Less than 2 months after the contract was signed, the city on the North German coast came under siege from the troops of the Imperial General Wallenstein, who eventually, after several weeks of attempts to take the city, had to give up the siege. The imperial forces, right? Do 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 bum bum bum. Anyway, after suffering critical losses, this event paved the way for the Treaty of Lubeck in 1629, which led to a Danish withdrawal from the fighting on the continent. Isn't that something kind of missing here? Because Denmark kind of, as far they had their issues and all that. Anyway, yeah, that's the reason why Denmark goes out of the war is because they're kind of losing. So I don't know what isn't there kind of missing some history here? It's like see here like of attempt to take the city had to give up the city. It sounds like after suffering critical losses, like it sounds like that the Danish Swedes are winning here, but as far as I know from other sources, the Danish Christian the Fourth was kind of losing. It was kind of the thing and the reason why they kind of that Denmark actually went out of the war kind of makes sense, right? So seems to be missing some information in regards to this. So this event paved the way for the Treaty of Lubeck in 1629, which led to the Danish withdrawal from the fighting on the continent. With Denmark out of the war, why would Denmark be out of the war? Because they kind of got their butt kicks, But, apparently that doesn't seem to be kind of... Anyway, and a newly signed truce with Poland, Lithuania, the Swedish state could now concentrate on the conflict in Germany. And oh, you've got to be kidding me with this nonsense. This is one of these bullshit things in this program that if you push, I don't know if you can actually, if there's a way to actually, but it's very, very annoying, I don't know if you can, like, if there's a feature where it actually, stop doing that, like navigating reverse buttons. I don't think there is a way, but, hopefully, would be nice if there was a way to actually not, to the next page instead of, anyway, let's get back to it. Just annoying, let's see here, where did we go? Because it happens a good amount of time, there's just a little click and then you're off the topic again, right? You're off the, where are we? You see, this is the problem, right? I don't know where we went to. Um, yeah, I think we are here, right? After suffering critical losses, this event paved the way for the Treaty of Lübeck in 1629, which led to the Danish withdrawal from the fighting on the continent. With Denmark out of the war and a newly signed truce with Poland and Lithuania, the Swedish state could now concentrate on the conflict in Germany. An extensive pro-war propaganda directed towards the Swedish population was launched, and when the Swedish Riksdag, ENG, I'm not sure what that, the Assembly of the Four Estates, finally gave its support for a war intervention in 1630, King Gustav II Adolphus and his advisors put together an army and sailed for the German mainland. The landing of the Swedish army, led by King Gustav II Adolf on the island of Euston on 6 July 1630, marks the start of the Swedish phase of the 30 Years' War, which at the time had already raged for 12 years. The Swedish intervention in the war proved at first to be successful, and the Swedish army managed to prevent a Papist victory and turned the tide of the war by a series of successful victories, most notable at Breitenfeld in 1631, wasn't it 32? Pushing the Catholic forces back to Bavaria. I thought it was 1632. Oh, maybe I'm. Wasn't it for 1632? Anyway, the success of Gustavus, let's just say Gustavus, right? The success of Gustavus' military activities in Germany was uncertain at first, and he found it hard to find allies. Maybe those allies would kind of be afraid if they actually, took his side, that the so-called Holy Imperial Guards or whatever, would come and bash them down, so when people are like, what could be the reason why they didn't support him, some of these, well, maybe because then they would have taken a side where they could have, fixed it to getting the, So anyway, so it's not to say that they didn't support him, but they might not want to show that they supported him, Kind of makes sense if you're not, if you're not sure if the guy can actually do anything. Then you kind of don't want to kind of show your totally support for him, because if you do, you might actually get if he loses, you loses, right? In some sense. Anyway, the German Protestant leaders hesitate, and it's like kind of like some of these conclusions that people are making is kind of like, give me a break, just think a little about it. Why wouldn't they maybe show their totally full support for this Protestant Swede? Well, maybe because they would be afraid that they would have their cities burned down and so forth. Anyway, the German Protestant leaders hesitated in joining him and preferred to stay neutral. Again, why would that maybe be? Some stranger coming from outside, who knows if he's actually going to be able to do anything against the Danish people got their butt kicked in regards to Christian the Fourth and had to make a deal with them and all that, right? So, which apparently this text doesn't really show. Anyway, fearing that more fighting would bring yet more destruction in their territories. Yeah, no wonder. However, in January 1631, he found an ally, the French. Through the Treaty of Beervilde, France agreed to provide financial support to Sweden, 400,000 riksdaler annually for 5 years in exchange for Sweden maintaining 36,000 soldiers on German soil for that period. The treaty gave Sweden an opportunity to continue the German campaign, and in April the Swedish army conquered Frankfurt and the Oder. The conquest of this city was an important victory for Sweden, but there was another event that could prove to be a vital turning point of the war. the destruction of Magdeburg. I think that the papists that actually ruined the Magdeburg. The city of Magdeburg had been under siege from the papist troops. The it was like the imperial armies, from the papist troops since 1630, and in May 1631, the city was sacked by the imperial troops. There we go, the imperial troops. Anyway, under the command of the General Tilly and his officer Pappenheim, more than 20,000, 2/3 of the city's population were killed, and the city was burned down. The destruction of Magdeburg, or the Magdeburgers Hochzeit, ENG, I don't know what that ENG is like. What does that mean? The wedding of Magdeburg, as it became known as in the unholy Roman Empire, caused outrage among Protestants, and soon both George William of Brandenburg, whose alliance more or less was forced by the Swedes, and John George I of Saxony allied themselves with Gustavus at Brightonfield in September 1631. I thought it was 32, but anyway. The combined forces of Gustavus and John George I managed to defeat Tilly's, and as far as I know, the Saxons actually ended up fleeing, but the Swedes ended up winning the battle. Anyway, I managed to defeat Tilly's imperial army. The Swedish king, who had proved to be a highly skillful military commander, now found himself to be a Protestant hero. And a great number of German Protestant princes who prior to the battle had hesitated to support him joined his cause. An important factor in Gustavus' success was the fact that the papist forces in northern Germany were reduced. In 1630, Emperor Ferdinand II decided to fire General Wallenstein due to his unpopularity among the papist rulers. Wallenstein's army, which consisted of more than 100,000 men, fell apart. Only 25,000 of these were enlisted into Tilly's army. And when Swedish forces started to operate in northern Germany, the two papist armies had been reduced to one. In 1632, the Protestant forces under the leadership of Gustavus, now with the wind in their sails, marched for Bavaria and Austria. München, Augsburg, Nuremberg were soon captured, and at Lich, while trying to prevent Gustavus' advance against München, General Tilly was severely wounded and later died. Emperor Ferdinand II, now fearing for the approaching Protestant army, decided to reappoint General Wallenstein, who first laid siege to Nuremberg and then marched into Saxony. Gustav had to return north to deal with the threat, but at the Battle of Lutzen in November 1632, the Swedish king faced his fate and was killed, although the Swedish did win the battle as far as I understand it. But the king did die. Gustavus died less than 3 years after his arrival in the unholy Roman Empire, but he had managed to prevent the papist victory and thus prolonged the war. Pretty much prolonged that the papists would not butcher the Protestants on lots of levels. Anyway, it's not a new thing that the papists butcher Christians, Anyway, Gustavus' daughter, Christina, was only 6 years old at the time of her father's demise. And I don't understand, Gustav loved his daughter, and yet her daughter his daughter ended up pissing on his grave, because he became a Roman Catholic and fled to Rome, or went to Rome, where we now have like a thing in Rome. If you go there, I have no idea how she could do a thing like that, but sometimes people have a dark heart, and anyway, even with good instructions and information and knowledge and all that, people just rotten. So anyway, Gustavo's daughter Christina was only 6 years old at the time of her father's demise, which meant that a Guardian government led by the Swedish Lord High Counselor Axel Oxenstierna and members of the Swedish aristocracy ruled Sweden until she became of age in 1644. Although Oxenstierna managed to create a union of Protestant states called the Heilbronn League in 1633, Gustavus Adolphus' death proved to be a hard setback for the Protestant struggle. In the following years, the Swedish army suffered a disastrous defeat at Nördlingen in 1634 and had to give up its positions in Bavaria. The Heilbronn League was dissolved and Sweden was almost forced to leave Germany. In 1635, Saxony and the unholy Roman Emperor struck a peace at Prague, and in the following year, 1636, Papist France entered the war, joined force with Protestant Sweden in order to prevent an imperial success. Something interesting, right? A Catholic nation taking the side of a Protestant. Anyway, this phase of the war is usually referred to as the French phase or the Swedish French phase. By this stage, the war had entered the new phase where the different belligerent parties now fought for political and military power rather than confessionalism. In regards of confessionalism, in regards of whether it's Protestant or Roman Catholicism, who cares? We want the power or something like that, right? Anyway, in October 1648, the peace treaty of Westphalia was signed, and 30 years of more or less constant fighting within the unholy Roman Empire was finally over. The destructive conflict had led to the death for millions, and the population of the unholy Roman Empire had decreased from 26 million to 15 million. When Sweden joined the fighting on the continent in 1630, it was one of the geographical biggest states in Europe, but at the same time also one of the most underdeveloped. After the end of the war, Sweden had emerged as one of the leading military powers in Europe, who together with France were the two non-German states responsible for the upholding of the German peace. The once considered undeveloped state with its small population had undergone a drastic change in the eyes of its European contemporaries, and after 1648 the Swedish state was seen in another light across Europe compared to the Swedish state that entered the war 18 years earlier. Okay. Previous research. The research on early modern state formation is extensive and has focused on many different aspects of state formation. One of these aspects is the development of European states into what John Brewer has labeled fiscal military states, as to say, so finally we get some kind of in regards of what the fiscal military thing is. A strong state with permanent armies and navies that had the capacity to meet the rapidly rising cost of warfare, an enormous increase in its depth with an efficient fiscal system. Economic historians such as Richard Bonnet, Michael Braddock, and Martin Daunton have stretched the importance of tax collection in the development of fiscal military states and their ability to create permanent armies and navies. The research on the early modern Swedish state formation has also included that taxation was important for the development of the Swedish fiscal military state. The centralization of the state had led to an expanding administration in the Swedish state, which in the first decades of the 17th century became professionalized with which both increased tax revenue and the control over the domestic population. The extensive administration made it possible to tax the domestic population and finance the rearmament of the Swedish army and navy. Besides taxation, Sweden was dependent on foreign subsidies in order to maintain and uphold its armed forces in Northern Europe. Other scholars of early modern state formation have stressed the cultural aspects of the state formation process, stating that religion or confessionalism was used as a building block of national identity and its political ideology. Okay. Let's see here what we have in regards of Bonnie has examined the development of France's tax collection during the period 1500 to 1914 for the development during the 17th century. See Bonnet 2012, page 96 to 10. I don't know. Daunting has examined British taxation from the turn of the 17th century until the outbreak of the First World War. See Daunting 2012. John Braddock has explored the development of the English state in the 17th century. See Braddock 2000. Yeah, whatever. Let's see here. From the 1630s onwards, Sweden received subsidies from France. Okay, let's go on here. During the reign of Gustavus, the Swedish church and its clergymen were responsible to explain and justify the wars for the members of their parishes, but they were also responsible for the bureaucracy and the establishing of people registration, which is the start of the Swedish population registration. This population registration becomes the foundation to the selection of conscripts in the Swedish army. Since the Swedish state entered, and I think actually that was from 16 to 60 or something like that in regards of the men, I can't remember. That was something in regards of the age of the men and all that could be conscribed to the Swedish army. Anyway, since the Swedish state entered the 30 Years' War on religious as well as political grounds, the confessional aspects of the Swedish political ideology will be taken into consideration in the analysis of the source material. Jenny Öhman has also stressed how Swedish spoils of the war gained during the 30 Years' War were used to culturally enrich the Swedish state in its ambitions to become a European great power. In social history, the research on ordinary people and their roles in early modern society has enjoyed a rise in popularity during the last couple of decades, where works such as Wayne T. Brake's Shaping History, Ordinary People in Early Modern Politics, 1500 to 700, has focused on the influence of ordinary people in the shaping of early modern states. In this work, T. Brake claims that elite-centered accounts long was the norm when studying the political and cultural change during the 16th and 17th centuries, overlooking the influence of ordinary people on the political and cultural change. T. Brake states that ordinary people had a more extensive role as political actors during the early modern period, and that they contributed more to the transformation of the European political and cultural landscape than it was previously thought. For this study, this notion of ordinary people's political and cultural influence will be observed and, if possible, used to establish if the illustrated broadsheets were aimed at a specific social group among German Protestants, or if they were aimed at the German Protestants in general. Much research has been conducted on early modern propaganda in relation to the Swedish state during the Swedish era of great power. During the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, the Swedish historians Sverker Arnoldsson and Göran Rikstad published a series of research that focused on the domestic propaganda in Sweden and Swedish propaganda in the unholy Roman Empire during the 30 Years' War. In the story of war, Anna Maria Forsberg analyzes how war propaganda was mediated in the churches of France and Sweden, stating that there was noticeable differences between the two states in how they legitimized the wars that they entered and how peace treaties and victories were celebrated in the churches of the respective states. And let's see here what we have in regards of Arnoldsson has stated that in the years leading up to the Swedish military intervention in 1630, the Swedish population was exposed to an extensive campaign of war propaganda, where religious support to the German co-religionists and the prevention of the war coming to Sweden was used as arguments to justify the Swedish intervention in the 30 Years' War. C. Arnoldsson, 1941, Ryden, has shown how Protestant propaganda during the 30 Years' War blamed the Swedish defeat at Nördlingen in 1634 on Catholic superiority in numbers. On Papist superiority in numbers. See Reichstag, 1960. Anyway, let's get back to it. The study of image making has offered new insights in how early modern states and early modern rulers legitimized their rule. Ever since it was first published in 1992, Peter Berg's influence work, The Fabrication of Louis the 14 has inspired many studies on early modern image making. In his work, Burke explores how the image of the French King Louis XIV was fabricated, pointing at how symbols, coins, arts, architecture, literature, and media were used both to legitimize his rule, but also as a way to tying the state, the symbols, and the monarch closer together, and thus creating a state where the French king was viewed as a representation of the state. By pointing at how the image of Louis XIV was fabricated, Burke highlights how image making always is depending on the ability to run with the times and update the image in order to maintain authority. In an article from 1997, Burke requested more research on public image making and representation of the Scandinavian monarchs. In this article, Burke wonders if the German image of Gustavus as a Protestant hero, the Lion of the North, and the liberator of Germany had been inspired by, at least encouraged by, the Swedish government, which is a question that will be reflected upon in the analysis of the source material. In line with the symbolism that was used in the public image making, the French analyst scholar Marc Bloch, or something like that, has emphasized the importance to take the sacral and mystical myth and legends ascribed the kingship into account when understanding the loyalty enjoined enjoyed by early modern sovereigns. This notion of importance of myth and legends for the legitimization of early modern rulers will be taken into account in the analysis of the illustrated broadsheets, as many of them contain mystical symbols and references to the Bible. Oh my, mystical symbols. Yeah, well, anyway. References to the Bible, yeah, kind of. Previous research on illustrated broadsheets. Let's see here. Oh, well, maybe we should actually take the footnotes, actually. Let's see here if Forsberg has shown how the detailed information from battle and siege were aimed at different social groups. In Sweden, this information was communicated to everyone, whereas in France, only the political elite were informed, stating in 3 points that had to do with: one, the different structure of society where French peasants were marginalized and the aristocracy ruled, whereas in Sweden the aristocracy was weak and peasants had representation in the parliament. State organization and in administration, where the French king did not have to justify his actions, whereas in Sweden the king had to answer to the Swedish parliament. And three, the organization of the different churches, where the French church was an independent actor, whereas the Swedish church was a servant of the state. And then we have another blog who investigated myth and legends surrounding French and English monarch during the Middle Age up until the 18th century, argued that in order for us to understand the loyalty enjoyed by these monarchs, it is not enough to look at the administrative, judicial, and economic organizations tied to the kingship, but it is also necessary to include the sacred and miraculous myth and legends connected to the kingship. Okay, let's get back to it. Previous research on illustrated broadsheets. Compared to other forms of historical source material, the illustrated broadsheets has been introduced relatively late to the historian's arsenal of source materials. Its popularity as a source material increased in the 1970s. 1970s? Yeah, 17, right? Yep. And simultaneously, several new methodological approaches used in the analysis of illustrated broadsheets were developed. Yeah, you couldn't just look at them, right? It's like, oh my. Much of the research on illustrated broadsheets prior to this did not analyze the illustrated broadsheets as an entity. Researchers usually separated text and illustration from each other and studied each section separately. This eventually changed during the 1970s with innovative publications from scholars such as William Arthur Coops or something like that, who study illustrated broadsheets inspired German. I wonder if that in regards of. Let's see here. I'm just going to take a screenshot here. William Arthur Coops, who study illustrated broadsheets, inspired German scholar Wolfgang Harms and his students, such as Michael Schilling and Sylvia Serena Shishop or something like that, to analyze illustrated broadsheets using a text and image approach, thus combining the two sections of the illustrated broadsheets and analyzing the entire illustrated broadsheet rather than analyzing each section separately. I guess that just takes a scholar to look at things, and you give me a break, Like, people are just full of bullshit these days, you have to go to the university, right? To kind of, figure out what it's about, right? Anyway, one of the most important contributors to the research field of illustrated broadsheets is the British historian John Roger Pace, who spent years in various archives and libraries across Europe searching for illustrated broadsheets. His extensive work, the German political broadsheet 1600 to 700, divided into 14 different volumes, containing more than 1,000 different illustrated broadsheets published in the unholy Roman Empire during the 17th century, is regarded by many researchers as the standard work in the research field of illustrated broadsheets. Yeah, it would be interesting. There probably is some anti-Catholic pictures amongst them that could maybe be somewhat interesting. But apparently that's the German political broadsheet, 1600 to 700, yeah. That could be interesting to have a look at. Yep. Let's see here. The vast majority of the research on broadsheets, and especially illustrated broadsheets in the recent decades, has been undertaken in countries from continental Europe and in the United Kingdom. Meanwhile, the Swedish research on illustrated broadsheets has not been given too much attention since the 1960s. Since the Swedish research on illustrated broadsheets has been in the state of stagnation since the 1960s, most of the research undertaken that has focused on the pro-Swedish illustrated broadsheets that were published in the unholy Roman Empire during the 30 Years' War has been conducted by non-Swedish scholars. Those have mainly focused on the portrayal of Gustavus and how these were used to legitimize the Swedish king's position in Germany. The most recent research on German illustrated broadsheets with pro-Swedish content has been conducted by the Austro-Swedish historian Tobias E. Himmeli, or something like that, whose research is centered around the history of media and communication, an early modern European political history. In his doctoral dissertation from 2019, Flockblad Propaganda zu Gustav Adolf von Sweden, Himmele examines 85 pro-Swedish illustrated broadsheets published in the unholy Roman Empire during the period 1630 to 1650. It might actually be interesting. From the illustrated broadsheet collection at the National Library of Sweden, using a theoretical framework of propaganda, Himmele is analyzing each illustrated broadsheet individual in detail and in chronological order in order to establish how the portrayal of Gustavus changed over time and how this was used in order to legitimize the Swedish king's presence in the unholy Roman Empire. In this conclusion, he states that the Swedish king was portrayed as a competent military commander, a Protestant hero, and as a Protestant milis Christianus, or a soldier of Christ, and that the illustrated broadsheets reflected the contemporary events of the development of the war. Let's see here if we have a footnote that might be... for studies that research German illustrated broadsheets with pro-Swedish content from the 30 Years' War, see Himmele 2019 to 2021. Yeah, well, okay. In his most recent book, Ausstieg and Niedergang der schwedischen Großmacht in sich genössischen Medienbilden, Himmele explores the different images of Sweden, German Das Schwedenbild, that was generated in various German illustrated broadsheets published in the unholy Roman Empire during the period 1611 to 1721. Given that Himmele's research is the most recent that has been conducted on pro-Swedish illustrated broadsheets that were published in the unholy Roman Empire during this historical period, this study will pay attention to his research. However, there will be some crucial differences in how the source material is approached and analyzed. Rather than focusing on pro Swedish propaganda as a whole and how it tried to legitimize the Swedish king in the unholy Roman Empire, this study intends to analyze the protection selling aspects of the pro Swedish propaganda and thus try to find out how the illustrated broadsheets were used to promote Swedish protection to the German Protestants. This will be done by thematically analyzing the illustrated broadsheets and searching for tendencies in how they portray Sweden and Gustavus as sellers of protection. Also, the source material in this study comes from the Oscar Planner collection at Carolina Rediviva, the Uppsala University Library, which contains other illustrated broadsheets that are not a part of the collection from the National Library of Sweden. One more thing that distinguishes this study from Hammerle's research is that it has the ambition to actively separate the confessional aspects of the illustrated broadsheets from the non-confessional. Ultimately, the vast majority of the previous research on German pro-Swedish illustrated broadsheets during the 30 Years' War has focused on how the portrayal of Gustavus was used to legitimize the Swedish king as both a political and military leader. By analyzing how they were employed to encourage German Protestants to buy Swedish protection, this study hopes to contribute to a further understanding in how early fiscal military states in Europe used this media format in order to acquire political power in foreign territories. Let's see here. Also, the source material comes from the Oscar Planner collection of Carolina Rediviva. There might be some interesting sources in regards to that. Oh, they sit on the gold. That's what they do. Okay, 1-4. Theoretical framework. This study will take insight from two trends that over several decades have had a huge impact on historical research: the linguistic turn and the cultural turn. In short, the linguistic turn has made scholars pay more attention to the use of language and how it has been used to manifest and maintain power, whereas the cultural turn has stressed the importance that culture has played historically in the construction of social relations and identities in contemporary society. Let's see here if we have footnotes. In Aufstieg und Niedergang, Hammerle categorizes the images of Sweden as the Nordic strangers, military Sweden, peacemaking Sweden, victorious Sweden, animalistic Sweden, miraculous Sweden, festive Sweden, and mourning/grievance Sweden. Okay. In total, there are 19 illustrated broadsheets from the collection of the Nation Library that are also a part of the Oscar Planner collection of Carolina Rediviva. These are Planner 3, 6, 7, 8, 14, 17, 19, 20, 29, 28, 21, 31, 32, 33, 34, 41, 44, 46, 47, and 53. Yeah. Okay, let's see here. William Mitchell's contribution to the linguistic term, the pictorial turn, will also influence this study. Mitchell makes a distinction between a picture and an image. Oh my, you gotta be kidding me. suggesting that a picture has a material meaning, whereas an image has a mental meaning. Oh, you give me a break with these bullshitters. Anyway, in short, the pictorial turn wants to stress that the material picture always carries a mental meaning that it provides its observers. However, it is of utmost importance that the observer puts this picture in the same historical context in which it was created in. Otherwise, there will be a risk that the mental meaning or image will be missed. The importance of historical context in the analysis of historical images is stressed by the German historian Rainer Wohlfehl, who means that an image not only is dependent on its maker, but that it is integrated in the traditions, conventions, and the social environment in which it is made. Hence, an image must be placed in the historic context in which it was made, and from this historically explained. Just like Wohlfehl, the Swedish historian Michael Alm is also stressing the importance of context when understanding historical objects, stating that linguistic and cultural phenomena cannot be understood without considering the social context in which they have been shaped and are expressed. This study will pay attention to Alm's notion of language and culture. Language, according to Alm, is both verbal and nonverbal, meaning that words, gestures, symbols, and rites are all to be understood as a form of language. Culture is used to describe the historic context that a historian is trying to reproduce and analyze. For this study, this means that the content of the illustrations will be understood as a form of language. In other words, the illustrations speak to its observers. They need to be understood within the frame of the historical and cultural context in which they were created. If this is not adhered to, the mental meaning will go lost in the analysis. In this study, these theoretical concepts are not used as analytical tools, but rather they provide a comprehension in how the source material should be approached in the analysis. And I think there's way too many words in regards to these things. Just sum it up and tell us, just show us the images and let's get on with it, right? But anyway. Protection selling, the main theoretical framework that will permeate the study, is inspired by the Swedish historian Jan Glid and his work War and the State in Early Modern Europe, in which he argues that the early fiscal military states were protection selling enterprises. Glid's work will be used to frame the conditions for protection selling and establish the difference between the Swedish state that went to war in 1630 and various states within the unholy Roman Empire. Yeah, see here. I have something, Alm 2002. Let's see. The original quote in Swedish, språkliga och kulturella fenomen inte kan förstås utan bräckten av de samhälleliga sammanhang där de formas och kommer till uttryck. I guess, we need some Swedish språkliga och kulturella fenomen inte kan förstås utan bräckten av de samhälleliga sammanhang där de formas och kommer till uttryck. I know that's whatever. All translations are made by the author. Yeah, okay. According to Glid, a successful use of the fiscal military concept in state formation made it possible for states to increase their power internationally, whereas those who were unsuccessful faced the risk of having their territories and power positions diminished. He means that a successful state formation is regarded as a result of the aggregation of political interest or of the bargaining process between rulers and populations, in practice often elite groups with local power. Throughout his book, Lee derives the thesis that in order for states to maintain large armies, there must be people who are willing to pay for protection. This prerequisite is referred to as political interest aggregation, and Lee stresses that the interest in society would decide whether or not a state would develop into a fiscal military state, arguing that the cooperation between local elites and the state was essential in order to establish an efficient fiscal military state. He makes a distinction between the medieval way of assembling troops, where the rulers had turned to the local elites for protection, who in their turn sent soldiers, horses, and ships to the state. In contrast, the early modern period saw states establishing permanent armies and navies and achieving a monopoly on violence. The early modern state assumed the role as the only viable supplier of armed protection and coercive power against external and internal threats, and thus driving the former providers of armed forces to turn to the state for armed protection. However, this transition varied from state to state, and by 1630 there was only a handful of successful fiscal military states in Europe. By 1630, Sweden had developed into a fiscal military state who possessed a modern and war-experienced army. Compared to many other early modern European states, Sweden differed in a number of ways. During the reign of Gustavus, the Riksdag, as to say, I guess, the Assembly of the Four States, and the aristocratic council were allowed to take part in debates about wars, and the Riksdag was invited to share responsibility for foreign policy, which essentially was used as a way to convince the king's subjects that the best way to protect Swedish interests domestically was to wage an offensive war in Germany. The Swedish state had also managed to engage the Swedish aristocracy in the state-building process, who were given important positions within the state apparatus and had the perception that their success and status, domestically as well as internationally, were intertwined with the Swedish state's prosperity, in contrast to early modern aristocracies in other European states, who often clashed with their rulers. The Swedish aristocracy shared a common ambition with the ruler to create a strong state that would be able to face the demands of war waging and big politics. In the absence of the monarch, this group was ready to step in and keep the state apparatus going, something that the death of Gustavus in 1632 would demonstrate, as Axel Oxenstierna created a guardian government that ruled Sweden until Gustavus' daughter Christina came of age in 1644. The 5 highest officers of the kingdom would constitute the core of the Swedish government, and all 5 were held by members of the Swedish aristocracy. By contrast, in 1630, there were still many European states that had failed to establish permanent armies or navies, as well as a domestic monopoly of violence. This was the case for many German rulers in the unholy Roman Empire, which meant that they had to rely on the market in order to obtain military protection. Gleed defines the sellers of protection as rulers who were in a key position to use modern mobile instruments of warfare, efficient field armies, heavy guns, specialized warships, for violence control. The ability to organize such forces and to make them credible was based both on the rulers' capacity as military organizers and on their skills as political bargainers, combined with favorable market conditions created by the increased importance of mobile forces. During the reign of Gustavus, the Swedish fiscal military state retained a modern army who had gained experience in working with and organizing mercenary armies, and a navy that was competitive with the other European navies. This professional and efficient army was also prepared to undertake offensive operations in order to conquer territory. This meant that Sweden, at the time of entry in the war, was in a position to sell protection to potential buyers, yet still, who were these buyers? Gleed is talking about the so-called bargaining process, where the rulers of states are the ones selling protection, where the population is the buyer. However, Gleed also remarks that many early modern rulers often turned to the market for protection, mainly because of the lack of competence to run complex organizations for the extraction of resources and administrations of armed forces. In a number of early modern states, as this was the case for many German rulers and cities who had failed to establish permanent armies or navies in the 16th century and for the first decades of the 17th centuries. This meant that they had to rely on contracts with elite estates or military entrepreneurs, as to say mercenaries, in order to raise armed forces. This demand for protection benefited Sweden, who during the 30 Years' War found allies that were willing to pay for the protection that its army could provide. In this study, Gleed's conception of the early fiscal military state as a protection selling enterprise is applied. The Swedish state and its army under the command of King Gustav II, or Gustavus, is understood as the seller of protection. Okay. The German Protestants of the unholy Roman Empire are to be understood as the buyers of protection. In order to sell protection, there was a need to convince the political interested groups among the German Protestants who were willing to pay for protection that the protection was good enough in order for them to be willing to invest in it. This is where the protection selling arguments comes in, as this study hopes to establish how the protection selling arguments of the pro-Swedish illustrated broadsheets were formulated in order to attract buyers from the German Protestants. Conditions for early modern rule, legitimization, and representation. How were the early modern rulers perceived by the 17th century Europeans, and how was the condition for early modern rule? Starting in the late medieval period, European states grew more centralized. The power got tied closer to rulers and their advisors. And consequently, the symbols of power were also tied closer to the rulers. Religion was a fundamental part of early modern society, and religious discourse was used to legitimize the power of rulers. This means to establish how the power of rule was manifested and legitimized. For a state to be legitimate, it needs symbolic representation. The American political theorist Michael Walzer once stated that the state is invisible. It must be personified before it can be seen, symbolized before it can be loved, imagined before it can be conceived. This is an excellent way of stressing that political authority does not spring up from nowhere, Manifested power needs to be represented by someone or something, and in order for rulers to be legitimized, they need to be accepted by those who are subordinate to their rule. The use of the term representation is inspired by Peter Berg's use of term in his work, The Fabrication of Louis XIV. Berg means the representation describes how the monarchs were used as representation of the state. This meant that all the people working within the state apparatus, ambassadors, provincial governors, and magistrates, all represented Louis. In addition to this, the French king was not only the figure that represented the state, but he was also portrayed as the living representation of God, as he was portrayed as God's deputy on earth. The use of God's deputy on earth is an excellent example of how religion not only permeated European society, but also European politics. After all, the role of religion in the legitimization of rule was of utmost importance for early modern European monarchs. See here, footnotes. In this article, Eriksson writes about the Swedish court minister Johannes Rudbeckius, his sermons during the reign of Gustavus, how the sermons may have affected the Swedish state building, and his thoughts on how the power of rule should be exercised. I wonder, is this like a preaching guy? Sermons, like see page. So you have 77. That might be an interesting thing. 77. Religion was a fundamental part of early modern society, and religious discourse was used to legitimize the power of rulers. So here at least we have a Swedish court minister, Johannes Rudbeckius. Might be interesting to look into. Swedish court minister, Johannes Rudbeckius. It could be him who actually understood the second beast to be the Jesuit, Could be. At least that's one source to check out at some point. Johannes Rudbeckius sermons. Yeah, we'll have to check that at some point. The use of the theoretical concept of legitimacy has been inspired by Michael Ohm, who in his turn has taken inspiration from the German sociologist Jürgen Habermas' definition of the term legitimacy. Accordingly, legitimacy are the claims that a ruler has made against the subordinates, and these claims need to be acknowledged by the subordinates in order for the ruler to be legitimized. Legitimacy, like power, is never constant, and there is a constant struggle taking place for a ruler to maintain legitimacy. And if the legitimacy isn't acknowledged by the subordinates, the ruler risks facing a problem of legitimization. For this study, Berger's definition of representation will be used to establish that the Swedish state and Gustavus were intertwined with each other, and thus the portrayal of Gustavus in the illustrated broadsheets should be understood as a portrayal of the Swedish state. Portrayal of the Swedish state, and the other way around. And we have the Latin bullshit, all those bullshitting educated use Latin all the time, right? Anyway, the term representation will also be used to establish what the Swedish state and Gustavus, as well as their enemies, are portrayed to represent in terms of protection, confessionalism, and political and military leadership. Consequently, representation will be used as an analytical tool in order to categorize the protection-selling arguments of the illustrated broadsheets in the conclusion of the study. There's a lot of words of just, it's like, could be a lot of, could be said in a lot less words, Since the targeted audience of the illustrated broadsheets were German Protestants, and consequently subordinates of various Protestant German rulers and not of Gustavus, this study will use Orm's understanding of legitimacy in order to demonstrate how the pro-Swedish illustrated broadsheets were trying to legitimize the Swedish military presence in the unholy Roman Empire. It will also be used to display how the illustrated broadsheets made an effort to convince their readers that Sweden possessed all the qualities that were acquired from a cellar of protection. Okay. Satire and character. Satire and character. In this study, the use of satire and caricatures. How do you say that? Caricatures. Character. In this study, the use of satire and caricatures. I can't say it apparently. Characters. Satire and characters in the illustrated broadsheets will be analyzed. The understanding of satire and characters departs from the works of Dustin Griffin and Jonathan Greenberg. Griffin writes that satire always emerges at particular times and places. Greenberg claims that one of the characteristics of its satire is that it makes reference to the real world and that it speaks about specific individuals and situations. This makes it clear that in order to understand both the satire in the illustrated broadsheets, that needs to be understood from the same historical and cultural context in which they were created. Like, the big brainies, right, in regards of the world of universities, right, doctors of philosophers, Caricatures are defined as drawings of human figures that exaggerate some features and simplify others, creating a comic but often grotesque impression. The style of the caricatures found in the illustrated broadsheets obviously differ from the more famous caricatures of the 18th and 19th centuries, such as James Gilrade's The Plum Pudding in Danger, or William Thackeray's caricature of Louis XIV of France, but the intention is still the same: to create an exaggerated or comic expression. John Roger Pace, has stated that the artist behind the 17th century caricatures found in illustrated broadsheets produced their caricatures for a community that shared their biases. I wonder what that bias would be. Like biblical bias, He also has pointed out that the majority of illustrated broadsheets with satirical and caricatural content during the 30 Years' War were published after a major defeat of an enemy. This means that the illustrated broadsheets that contains caricatures most likely reflects the social environment in which they were created. In this study, satire is understood as a political tool used by manufacturers of the illustrated broadsheets in which they were trying to undermine the legitimacy as well as questioning the authority of Sweden's enemies. As with satire, caricatures is understood as a form of political tool used by manufacturers of the pro-Swedish illustrated broadsheets with the intention to ridicule Sweden's enemies. They are both to be comprehended as attempts made to convince the readers of the illustrated broadsheets to select the protection of the Sweden, or protection that Sweden can offer, as opposed to the protection that the Sweden's enemies are offering. Milus Christianus. An often used theme in medieval and early modern imagery and art was the Milus Christianus thematic, as to say, Christian soldier who in the name of God and armed with his weapons and armor fought against the evil in the world. The Miles Christianus ideal, which was established during the Middle Age, continued to be an aspired ideal for the people of the 16th and 17th century Europe. Himmler has in his research pointed out that the pro-Swedish illustrated broadsheets published in the unholy Roman Empire portrayed Gustavus as a Protestant Miles Christianus to legitimize the presence of the Swedish king in the unholy Roman Empire. For this study, the Miles Christianus ideal not only provides a clue in how the content of the illustrated broadsheets might have been perceived by the 17th century Europeans, it also established the fact that the illustrated broadsheets intended to portray Gustavus as a pious military leader who was fighting side by side with God. Therefore, the Miles Christianus portrayal of Gustavus will be understood as a protection-selling argument used in order to promote Swedish protection to the German Protestants. It's like kind of saying the same thing over and over and over, it seems like. Let's see here. Here, Pass is referring to two waves of satirical broadsheets, the first wave being published after the defeat of Frederick V, the Winter King, and the second wave being published in the aftermath of General Tilly's defeat against Gustavus at Breidenfeld. Yeah, well, it's like 16 pages into it, and yet we haven't really seen anything yet, it's like just lots of words, like 15 pages or 16 pages of just words and words and words. I think it's called word salad, right? So 1.5 method. To achieve the aim, the study will look for protection-selling arguments that are found in the source material. And this study of protection-selling arguments that is defined as any form of positive description or portrayal of Sweden and Gustav II, or Gustavus, in the text and illustrations of the illustrated broadsheets, and as any form of negative description or portrayal of Sweden's enemies. Hence, a protection-selling argument is something that encourages a potential buyer, in this case the German Protestants, to buy protection from a seller, in this case the Swedish state. This study will be terminatical study that is looking for tendencies in the illustrated broadsheets. Haven't he used already those words and phrases? Maybe he used the AI to write this thing, I don't know. As the source material, I guess, maybe it's just to fill it out. When you have reports and all that, you need to fill out the pages, right? It's just stupidity. Instead of just keeping to the pages that you feel like you have kind of value and substance and all that, you end up needing to use words to fill out pages so you get the right specific amount of pages to be accepted for, it's kind of bullshit. I don't know, it's like bullshit. A lot of bullshit in this world. As the source material consists of approximately 30,000 words and more than 50 different illustrations, where each illustration is filled with various symbols and small details, it would not be possible to account for every little aspect that is found in the source material. Consequently, rather than analyzing each illustrated broadsheet individual, the study will look for tendencies in the source material, which means that all results that are presented in the study are empirically generalizations that reflects the tendencies that are found the illustrated broadsheets. In the conjunction with the analysis of the source material, previous research will be used in order to strengthen the interpretation and conclusion that are drawn. Yeah. So it's like, as the source material consists of approximately 30,000 words, how does that actually work out? Source material, like the words added to the pictures or something like that. 30,000 words. How many words is on a page? I don't know. That's a good question. Let's see let's see if we look it up. How many words is usually on a page? 500 words, single space, so 250 words, double spaced. Okay, nice. So that would see how many pages would that be? 500 divided by 30,000. Oh, a lot. Like 60 pages, is that right? Maybe it's even more. No, actually, yeah, that's 2, run 2, that's like 60 pages. Okay. If I'm correct, at least. Maybe my brain is just. See here, what do you want? Like 16, yeah? So, okay. Consequently, rather than analyze, yeah, we pretty much took that, right? We previously, yeah. Categorization of analyzers. You gotta be kidding me. How much words is he going to? In order to analyze the source material in a practical way, the analysis is divided into 2 main chapters. In the first chapter, the portrayal of Sweden and Gustavus, the focus is on the protection-selling arguments that are used to promote Sweden and Gustavus. The second chapter, the portrayal of Sweden enemies, puts emphasis on the protections. You gotta be kidding with me, all like protection-selling arguments that are used to generate a negative image of Sweden's enemies. The categorization of the tendencies in the illustrated broadsheets is in itself a result in this study. Because of the religious nature of the early modern period and the fact that the 30-Year War was a confessional conflict, a distinction has been made between confessional protection-selling arguments and non-confessional protection-selling arguments in the analysis. Isn't this just saying the same thing over and over and over and again in regards of, we're going to use some big words, some Latin words, and this and that and all that, and just, separating the confessional aspects from the non-confessional aspects. It will allow the study to distinguish the scenarios in which religious or non-religious arguments are used. Here it must be pointed out that religion affected all parts of early modern society and was an essential part of early modern politics and international diplomacy, which is why it is so important to stress that also the non-confessional aspects in the source material might include religious references. Wow, Therefore, a decision has been made to make a distinction between purely confessional portrayals such as descriptions of Gustavus as a soldier of God from non-confessional portrayals where the religious references are used in order to describe a specific situation, such as when the General Tilly of the Papist League is talking to a Catholic bishop about his refusal to take up arms against Gustavus. The first chapter of the analyzes the portrayal of Sweden is divided into 2 subchapters. In the first subchapter, confessional protection-selling arguments, the religious. I guess this guy would be a bit, like, what are you kidding me? In regards to this, people reading this, it's like. The religious arguments that are used to promote, how is 16 pages of the blah 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 blah. The religious arguments that are used to promote Sweden and Gustavus in illustrated broadsheets are examined, such as the use of biblical characters and portrayal of the Swedish king as a Protestant, Milis Christianus. Haven't he already said that a couple of times? In the second subchapter, political and military protection-selling arguments, the emphasis is on how the non-confessional arguments are used to promote Sweden and Gustavus as a political and military leaders, such as the military capacity of the Swedish army and Swedish king ability to unite and lead the German Protestants, All the results from the analysis of the two subchapters are summarized at the end of the chapter. Maybe he made all this introduction just to butcher the person so you get too tired to actually get to the real thing, right? In the second chapter of analysis, the portrayal of Sweden enemies, the emphasis is on the protecting selling arguments that were used to generate a negative image of Sweden's enemies. This chapter is divided into two subchapters. In the first subchapter, confessional enemies, the focus is on the confessional protecting selling arguments that are used. Like, you gotta be kidding me. Do you need to, tell things over and over again? I guess these university educated people are just absolutely, I guess they can't use their brain at all. Anyway, the focus is on the confessional protecting selling arguments that are used in the portrayal of Sweden's enemies. In the second subchapter, incapable political and military leaders, the non-confessional protection selling arguments are examined. All the results from the analysis of the two subchapters are summarized at the end of the chapter. In the conclusion, the protecting selling arguments will be transformed into representation, as to say it will be defined, while the protecting selling arguments that have been identified in the analysis claim that Sweden and Gustavus represent. This will make it more convenient to draw conclusions and establish what form of protecting selling arguments that are used in the pro-Swedish illustrated broadsheets. I guess just people are just too stupid to figure that out for themselves. Give me a break. Anyway, 1.6 source material: a brief presentation of illustrated broadsheets and the illustrated broadsheets from the Oscar Planner collection. One of the new media formats that emerged in the early modern period was the illustrated broadsheets, a single sheet print whose popularity peaked in the 16th and 17th century and played a crucial role during the Reformation and the 30 Years' War. The illustrated broadsheet, which contains both text and illustration, was a commonly used medium during the early modern period. The area of usage for the illustrated broadsheet was very versatile. It was used as a medium for entertainment as well as medium that was used for the spread of information and propaganda. Well, I guess that what means in regards to what is propaganda? Is propaganda truth, or is propaganda lies being promoted, right? Because a lot of people will say this is propaganda, that is propaganda. But how does the truth become propaganda? But anyway, although several of the illustrated broadsheets have survived into the 21st century, many of the might be some interesting information here, right? Although several of the illustrated broadsheets have survived into the 21st century, many, Roman time, of course, many of the authors and artists behind them are still unknown. Yeah, it's kind of all those Protestant things that have been lost because no one actually upheld them. They just tended to vanish away. Anyway, behind them are still unknown. It is more normal to know the year in which an illustrated broadsheet was published, where it was printed, and the name of printer or publisher. An illustrated broadsheet was usually printed in 1,000 or 2,000 copies, and because of the combination of text and image, they reached a large audience. It's kind of a truth handout, right? Although the vast majority of early modern Europeans were illiterate, some could read. The general, you just have to have one person being able to read, right? And then everybody else can actually be told what it is, right? Anyway, the general public could read the illustrations, and it was not unusual that the text of the illustrated broadsheet were read out aloud by literates, for those who could not read, thereby making the content of the illustrated broadsheet known for a larger audience. Also, the size of the illustrated broadsheet meant that it could be read and perceived differently compared to illustrations or text in a book or pamphlet. It would also be placed in a different public places, such as a tavern, a coffee house, in public places like the town square, or in family homes, making it a notable piece of media that would appear in places where other media formats would not normally appear. The illustrations or images from the broadsheets were also frequently reprinted or copied and sometimes served as models for print in other countries. An advantage of using illustrated broadsheets as source material is that they contain both text and illustrations, which allow more methodological possibilities. The potential reach of illustrated broadsheets can reach a clue to the strategies applied by the Swedish state when using this form of medium to spread its ideas and portrayal of itself. After all, it is most likely that the illustrated broadsheet was one of the early modern media formats that most early modern people, literate as well as illiterate, and regardless of social belonging, were exposed to. The textuality in combination with visuality made the illustrated broadsheet an excellent media format whose content would be understood by the viewer regardless if the content was information, satire, amusement, or propaganda. The illustrated broadsheet from the Oscar Planner collection. The illustrated broadsheets that have been examined in this study are part of Oscar Planner collection, which is housed at Carolina Rediviva, the Uppsala University Library. The man behind the collection was a German collector from a German village of Lutzen called Oscar Planner. 1853 to 1931 who collected historical artifacts and objects, particular if they had a local connection to the history of his native town of Lutzen. Over the years, Planner managed to build an impressive collection of objects that, among other things, contain coins, broadsheets, medallions, weapons, and books. On the 6th November 1917, the collection was sold to the Uppsala University. The purchase was made possible through a donation by Ernst A. Kjellberg, a Swedish iron master. Okay. Well, might be an interesting look, I guess, in regards of some Protestant material. See, Swede Brooks Patron, who paid 40,000 krona for the collection. The collection arrived at Uppsala in March 1918 and has remained at Carolina Rediviva ever since. Today, parts of the collection has been digitalized and made available online at the Alvin platform. This includes the illustrated broadsheets and the collection of coins. Well, actually, might be interesting. Might actually get some. Maybe I can find some of the images in better quality at available online at the Alvin platform. Maybe you need to be a scholar to have access. Who knows? They kind of tend to keep the information away from people, right? It's only the educated doctors or philosophers that they control that can get a lot of the information. Anyway, let's see here. Alvin platform. Let's see here. Collection of broadsheets. Let's see here if we can find something. Broadsheets. Alvin portal. That's on alvinportal.org. They could have put the. Apparently I already have been on it. Dies ist der Mann der Helfen. Maybe this is actually from it, in regards of the book itself, So that's nice. Okay, so maybe we have some more further images, or we can ask them in regards of some good quality images. But yeah, it seems like this book is actually from the alvinportal.org. Let's see here. Ooh, we have books, images, resource types, archive images, maps, books and manuscripts, object. Let's see here, contact. You can also contact them. Let's see here if we what we search. What is it called? The two beasts. You could also search Adolphus. I search on Adolphus and see what we find. If we find anything, it looks like kind of a library thing. So I guess we have some Adolphus. Well, that's James Adolphus. That's not the right one. Well, we need to look into in regards of broadsheets. Gustav II Adolf, Kung of Sverige. Kung, okay. Kung. We have some images, okay. Different images. Boom. We also have apparently some coins in regards of him. I wonder in regards to those images. As you can see, a good amount of the king. Maybe I can find some of those other images. Doesn't seem to be in regards of. Oh, maybe that's like see. Okay, let's see here. Two beast. Search up two beast. Extended search about Alvin copyright. Well, you can contact them, so you can probably find all types of images. Okay, image. We can search on Augsburg, of course. Augsburg, an image. Should be finding something. Augsburg. See here, Augsburg. It does give you some images, but of course we kind of want some kind of other kind of images. I don't know if they have index, place, work, objects, software, archive, all types of. Well, okay. Results. We want all the results on one single page if we can. Like these things in regards to the clicking game, right? The devil loves the clicking game. I don't see. Oh, whoa. What do we have here? I think we have something. Let's see what we have. How good of quality is this? Well, we have an image at least, but I'm not sure how good this is good. This is good quality. Although I'm not sure if I can save it. How do you can actually save the image? But it is very, very good. You can zoom in a lot in regards to the text. So that's good. Oh, download. Okay, let's see if we can download it or if we need to log in to download it, Oh, it actually downloads a TFEFF file, apparently. This is good. This might actually be. I had the other one that was also a TIFF file. I don't, that was a good question. Oh, we might have found some pretty. No, actually, this is the third one. The second image should also be there someplace. Let's download. This is good. Let's see. Let's see if what happens if we open the image and yeah, we got quality. I think. Yeah, we got good quality. You can see the text and all that. Oh, this is good. This is wunderbar. Oi, this is good. This is really good. Yeah, Augustiata adio per diem liberata. Like this is why we read things like this, is in regards of finding information. I don't think I can get it much better quality anymore, It's like I think we have all. Well, we need this second image, but it should also be on that website. It's nice that you don't even need to log in. This is how it should be. So where's the third? It should be picture more. The second picture should be there. So we have the first one and we have the third. We don't. I think maybe this one. I think we have the second one as well. Yeah, we have the second one as well. Ooh, yeah, with the text and all. This is good. This is gold. Gold. Ooh, yo. This is yummy. Yep, we found gold. This is amazing. Ooh, yo. This is that was worth all of it pretty much. We got it in very good quality. So that was the website Alvin dividing line portal.org. Or where I just found the three images in a very good quality with the information as well. So it would be interesting to go through if they have a lot of these broadsheets, if you can just look at them, like there might be some really nice gold on that platform. Who knows? It was like when talking about 4 books or something like that, full of images. There might be some very good Protestant, at least. Yeah, So anyway, in total, let's see here. In total, the Oscar Planner collection consists of 53 broadsheets. For a broadsheet to be chosen for examination, it had to, maybe I need to go a little backward. The collection arrived in Uppsala in March 19. So maybe the other books collection thing was in something else, like 4 books or something like that, right? I'm not sure. Maybe it was the same thing again. That's hard to remember. It took some screenshots, right? So anyway, today parts of the collection has been digitalized and made available online at the Alvin platform. This includes the illustrated broadsheets and collection of coins. In total, the Oscar Planner collection consists of 53 broadsheets. For a broadsheet to be chosen for examination, it had to live up to the following criteria. 1, it needed to be an illustrative broadsheet, as to say, it must contain both text and illustration. And 2, the language of the illustrated broadsheet needed to be in German. Why does it need to be in German? The language of illustrated broadsheets needed to be in German. I don't know. Why would it need to be in German? Oh, from the 53 different broadsheets that makes up the illustrated broadsheet section of the Oscar Planner collection, 6 did not meet the criteria, making them unsuitable for analysis. I really actually just wanted just give me the images instead of the nonsense of all the text, right? I could probably have looked at all the images by now, The remain, and pretty much taking, like, oh, this is good, this is not good, this is good, this is not good, this is good. It shouldn't really take that long, right? The remaining, is like in regards of analyzing something, right? If it's worth anything, it kind of should be pretty easy, The remaining 47 illustrated broadsheets were used in the study. Overall, 40. Well, I guess I could search on the Oscar Planner collection and see the whole thing. Maybe find the whole thing. That could be nice. Anyway, all the things actually used from the Oscar Planner collection? I guess. 6 did not meet the criteria, making them unsuitable for analysis. The remaining 47 illustrated broadsheets were used in the study. So I guess from the same place they've used 47. Overall, 46 of the 47 illustrated broadsheets were published after the Battle of Bredenfield in September 1631. So only one before that. Okay. Some of the actually is interesting, right? Because if that battle, you would think that there would have been something going on before the battle, where it actually turns kind of everything in the direction of the positive thing for the German, where they win the victory over the Papists, Some of the illustrated broadsheets will feature more prominently in the analysis than others. The content of one individual illustrated broadsheet can both be confessional and non-confessional. At the same time, it can also generate both a positive description or portrayal of Sweden and Gustavus, as well as generate a negative description or portrayal of Sweden's enemies. Like, you gotta be kidding me. Do you need to rewrite this again and again and again? There probably is some kind of minimum that the person needs to fix in regards of images. I remember on the DTU thing in regards to the Danish assignment, and you needed to make 10 papers. And there's a point where I was like, I can't write more in regards to the subject, but you need to have it, you need to reach the 10 pages. So you end up trying to just fill up something. And it's just it's the wrong way of doing it. Like this way of training people to write more than they actually. You want to write as little as possible and concentrate that specific text as much as possible. You don't want to waste people with 1,000 pages of bullshit when you can just condense it down to 100 pages. But anyway, that's the world is mad. And if you could even condense those 1,000 pages to 10 pages, that would even be even better. But anyway, so let's see here. You don't need to just use words for the sake of the words, right? It's just stupid. We don't have that much time, in regards of life and all that. And in regards to the old days, in regards to the Protestants, they kind of, condensed things a little more because they didn't just have this superfluous ability to just make books of thousands of pages and all that, kind of expensive, and it took time to kind of fix things and all that. And I guess that's also one of the reasons why they would be using broadsheets, condense things into the message that they want to give, and then you can just hand it out to different people. Anyway, and there are, it's not like, in our days, right? We have a printer, right? You can just put a printer and tell to print out and all that, but in the past, you kind of had to, anyway. That's, you can see here, several times, of Sweden and Gustavus, as well as generate a negative description or portrayal of Sweden's enemies. Consequently, some illustrated broadsheets will feature in several times in the analysis, whereas others might only feature in once. Are you telling me that you are reposting the images a couple of times or is some illustrated broadsheets will feature in several times in the analysis, whereas others might only feature in one. I don't know what he means about that. Hopefully, he won't be using the same image multiple times But anyway, there are 3 reasons why the illustrated broadsheets from the Oscar Planner collections are considered to be ideal source material for this type of study. Firstly, they have a pro-Swedish content, with the intention to generate a positive image of Sweden and its ruler, King Gustav. Give me how many ways do you need to tell the reader about, and at the same time discredit their papist counterparts. Secondly, they were all manufactured, printed, and distributed in different German-speaking parts of the unholy Roman Empire during the period 1630 to 1633, meaning that the majority of the readers of the illustrated broadsheets would have been German-speaking Protestants. Finally, the illustrated broadsheet was a popular media format during the 7th century, and with its mix between textuality and visuality, they had the potential to reach a large base of German Protestant readers, including both literate and illiterate, as well as the nobility and the ordinary people. Haven't the person just told us this multiple times already? It's it's just me, just rehashing, I guess, the same information, I guess it's called, right? Kind of gets a little old, Anyway, let's see what we have of footnotes. Let's see, Museum, Digital Saxon, Oscar Planner, Gustav Adolf Sammlung. It's like, in conjunction with the 250th anniversary of the death of the Swedish king at Lutzen in 1632, as well as the 50th anniversary of the Gustav Adolf Fair-Inn in Lutzen, Planner decided to start to put together a collection dedicated to the Swedish king Gustav II Adolf. In 1916, the collection, simply named the Gustav Adolf Sammlung, was catalogued. However, already the year after, Planner was forced to sell off his collection due to the First World War and its economic effects on the European economy. Okay, about Alvin. Alvin is a platform for the long-term. Oh, here we go in regards to. But still, why don't they put a web address? Like, Alvin is a platform for the long-term preservation and accessible storage of digitalized collections and digital cultural heritage materials. It is also a catalog of materials that have not yet been digitized. Okay, next footnote. 4 of these broadsheets did not contain an illustration or image, and thus were not illustrated broadsheets. One illustrated broadsheet only had writing in Latin, and the last illustrated broadsheet was a rebus. What is a rebus? Making the transcription of the text too difficult. A rebus, or I guess it's some kind of riddle or thing. I don't know. For the only illustrated broadsheets published before the Battle of Brighton, Field C, Planner 3. T-Shop 1991, page 62-64 here. T-Shop states that the Swedish state only had opportunities to print in occupied territories, but that pro-Swedish literature was printed in German cities like Strauslong, Rostock, Hamburg, Leipzig, Strasbourg, Frankfurt, Augsburg, and Nuremberg. Oh, Nuremberg. That's also where the Nuremberg, right, in regards to those Nazis and all that, got hanged or judged, for their criminal acts and all that. Anyway, lots of Nazis around these days. They had the potential to realize. Yeah, we pretty much took that. Okay, what? Oh my, more text. Are you kidding me? Analyzes the portrayal of Sweden and Gustav II, or Gustavus. In this chapter, the study is actively looking for protection selling arguments that are you gotta be kidding me with this. It's like, he could have fixed this whole thing on one concentrated page. It's like 21 pages of talking about protection selling arguments and protection selling. Well, at least we got the other images. We found the other images, so that's at least a victory. Getting a little closer to good material. So number 2 analyzes the portrayal of Sweden, or the portrayal of Sweden and Gustavus. In this chapter, the study is actively looking for protection selling arguments that are used to convince the reader of the illustrated broadsheets that Sweden possesses all the qualities that are requested by an actor that is selling protection. By examining confessional and non-confessional protection selling arguments separately, this chapter hopes to conclude in which the circumstances the illustrated broadsheets used religion to promote Swedish protection and in which circumstances they did not. I was like, there's only 100 pages in this document, right? And we already have through the first 20, so at some point there must be coming some images, Confessional protection selling arguments. Oh, give me a break. That's 2-1. In Tobias Hammerly's research, he has pointed out how the pro-Swedish illustrated broadsheets wanted to portray Gustav II Adolf as a Protestant Milis Christianus. How many times have we already seen this Milis Christianus? Something that was used in order to legitimize the Swedish king intervention in the 30 Years' War. Like, it's just rehatching the same information, it seems like, over and over again. I really did. You do really wonder if this guy used some kind of AI, or he just wanted to rewrite things over and over again. I just told the AI I want you to but it has to be so and so many pages. Anyway. Hammerley has clarified that the Miles Christianity or Milius Christianity portrayal of the Swedish king in the pro-Swedish illustrated broadsheet was put into practice shortly after the arrival of the Swedish army in the unholy Roman Empire in 1630. But that it was particular after the Battle of Breitenfeld in September 1631 that the Miles Christianos thematic in illustrations of the illustrated broadsheets got more intense. Well, kind of, most of your broadsheets are kind of after that period, right? You only have one before that. So, anyway, the earlier publications of the pro-Swedish illustrated broadsheets portrayed Gustavus as a military commander, but also wanted to connect the Swedish king to the biblical heroes from the Old Testament, as well as the mythological Hercules and Alexander the Great. Like, I was like, why would you mix, but also wanted to connect the Swedish king to the biblical heroes from the Old Testament, as well as the mythological. I really, I really want to see some evidence for that, and not just bullshit from, because this guy looked like he was very, very Christian in regards of his views in regards of the king. So I'm not so sure he would be so happy in regards of being mixed up with. Anyway, as expected, there are several illustrated broadsheets that use the concept of the Miles Christianity thematic to portray Gustav II Adolf as a knight of God. Also, Hammerley's notion that the use of Miles Christianity thematic got more intense after the Battle of Breitenfeld is something that is visible in the illustrated broadsheets as the most prominent examples on the use of the Miles Christianos thematic were established after the Battle of Breitenfeld. So that was established after. So, but didn't he just say that it also was kind of used before that? But yeah, I don't know. That it just got more intense after, like that the Miles Christianus thematic in illustrations of illustrated broadsheets got more intense, and that got more intense. Well, if it got more intense after the battle, right, it kind of would be there before that as well, right? Yeah, it's just. Anyway, Miles Christianus as protection selling argument. If we look at the Miles Christianus portrayal of Gustavus from, why do you need to say it all the time? From the protection selling argument point of view, there's reason to believe that this was also used as a form of protection selling argument. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. It's like, give me a break with the bullshit, okay? I should, the connection between the Miles Christianus thematic and protection selling argument is something that is present in the vast majority of illustrated broadsheets that portrays Gustavus. If this guy wrote it himself, you gotta be kidding me. I can understand if this is some kind of AI thing that he actually made the AI make it or something like that. Why would you rewrite things over and over? Well, maybe because you needed to fill it off to 100 pages or something like that. It's like the same thing over and over and over again. Like, okay, we kind of understood it already, okay? Anyway, let's see here. We have a footnote. Among the examined illustrated broadsheets from the Oscar Planner collection, only the illustrated broadsheet Planner 3 is published before the Battle of Breitenfeld. Yeah, we kind of already saw that information at least 2 times, right? I think in the 1631, in this illustrated broadsheet, the Miles Christianus thematic is rather modest in relation to the other illustrated broadsheets where Gustavus is portrayed as the Miles Christianus. The most prominent Miles Christianus portrayals are found in the following broadsheets: Planner 32, 41, 33, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 40, or 53, sorry. All these were published after the Battle of Breitenfeld in September 1631. Yeah, kind of, it would be kind of easy to you already told us that only one was published before, right? So that makes sense that every other one would be posted afterwards. Like I guess these learned people just don't use their brain. I guess they just have to be told things over and over again. I don't know. Just Anyway, illustrated. I guess that's what education does to people, right? Make them stupid, you know. Illustrated broadsheets. It becomes apparent that the main argument as to why the German Protestant should accept the protection offered by the Swedish king is because he enjoys the support of God. Oh, give me a break, you know. Okay. In the illustrated broadsheet, Das Schwert des Herren, the illustration shows how the hand of God is passing the sword of God and Gideon to Gustav II Adolf. Standing next to the Swedish king is the Prince Elector of Saxony, John George I, who will assist the Swedish king in his godly mission. The rulers are depicted holding their right hand on the Bible. Well, that sounds like a good thing, you know. And that's actually a typical thing of Protestants that to show in regards to the Bible, you know. When you see a lot of the Protestants, if they are depicted on some place, they usually will be holding a Bible because, of course, they were being murdered and butchered by the papists for doing such an evil thing to actually read the Bible in the common tongue or listening to it, right? You know, just terrible, apparently, according to these devilish children. Anyway, so the rulers are depicted holding their right hands on the Bibles, swearing to protect the Augsburg Confession. And the Augsburg Confession, of course, there's actually more than one. There's actually two, and that made some confusion. Because Melanchthon actually updated the Augsburg Confession to make room for the Calvinist and the Zwinglist and all that in regards to the cookie Jesus and all that. Although in Denmark we actually ended up going back to the first one. I think that was actually Christian IV that established that. That was a stupid move of him, but you know, that's you know, kind of, you cannot find a king that didn't do something stupid, you know. So the rulers are depicted, well, at least not Danish kings, you know. And probably, you know, I guess you can probably find kind of a mistake in every single king on the earth. That's always a nice thing if they're actually Protestant, right? You know, that's always a good, you know. We don't have any Protestant kings anymore, pretty much. We're infiltrated by Romanism again. By Roman Catholic or Roman poopery in regards to Freemasonry that infiltrated the nation long ago and infiltrated Sweden as well, Norway, Iceland, I think, used the same satanic system of Freemasonry. Of course, the Danish throne and all that are mixed into that bullshit. Anyway. So let's see here. So John George I, who will assist the Swedish king in his godly mission. The rulers are depicted holding their hands on the Bible, swearing to protect the Augsburg Confession. A battle is raging in the illustration background, where the Protestants' battle cry "God mit uns" is printed twice, implying that the Protestant forces under the leadership of Gustavus are supported by God. Yeah, God mit uns. Well, the German Nazis actually also used that with the cookie Jesus, symbol of the cookie Jesus and all that, because Hitler was a Roman papist, you know. And the Protestants was not really Protestants anymore, and those who actually did protest was put into camps as well and butchered and slaughtered and all that, like the Jews. Anyway, of course, the Nazis, the Roman papists, fled through the Radican red lines, you know, the Ustashi, the Croatian Ustashi, and all the fascists. They fled to Roman Catholic Argentina and all that. Anyway, 8 different verses from the Bible's Old Testament are incorporated in the illustration, making it clear that God has sent the German Protestants a divine fighter. Armed with the sword of God, and Gideon, the fighter assisted by God, will perform great deeds and defeat the enemies, over whom lightning, fire, and sulfur will reign. Everyone who has witnessed this will be able to say that God did this. Also in the text, it is stated that it is God that has sent the Swedish king to defend his threatened church. Gustavus' divine mission will be assisted by the Prince Elector of Saxony, and God will stand by the side of these two in the fight against the Popery Church, the Pope, and the unholy Roman Emperor. Well, in the Augsburgische Confession, Gustavus is portrayed as the sole protector of the evangelical faith against the papist threat, which is represented by the Pope, the Jesuit monks, and the priest. Once again, Gustavus is handed the sword of God and Gideon, which he will use to protect a candle symbolizing the Augsburg Confession. The Catholics in the illustration are trying to extinguish the flame of the candle by using a cannon, bellows, various weapons and tools, but are unsuccessful in their efforts. And also, in regards to the candle, the Waldensians used the candle as well. In regards of light, and of course, the papists tried to, well, they did actually murder and persecute the Waldensians in many levels and burn their Bibles and books and so forward and all that. Anyway, the text well, there were Protestants before the Protestants came around, right? The papists are full of bullshit when they say, well, Protestants didn't come around before. No, that's not true. Protestants goes right back to the 1st century in regards to the first Christians. Anyway, the text recalls how desperate the situation was for the German Protestants in 1629. Yeah, the thing is that the Swedish king, the Protestants of the north, was afraid that if there was not any intervention, then all, that German Protestantism would be lost. That all the Protestantism in regards to Germany would be undone. And that Popery would take over again. So, and the text recalls how desperate the situation was for the German Protestants in 1629, describing how people were in distress constantly. The Pope, the Jesuit emperor, the emperor that was educated by the satanic special soldiers of the Jesuits was running around murdering Protestant Christians to the left and the right. Anyway, so this was one of the things that the Swedish king was, coming down to help the German Protestants. So anyway, the text recalls, it seems like, in regards to this document, there's like, there's so much interest in regards to this and that, Now, the thing is that the Protestant Germans were being butchered to the left and the right, So like the guy in England that chopped off the English king's head because he was, doing some things with the Roman papists and all that. Oliver Cromwell, like he went to Ireland to stop the butchering of the Irish Protestants. And again, we have the Jesuits being behind that as well. But yeah. Anyway, so it's the same thing with the Swedish king going down to Germany, as far as I can see. The text recalls how desperate the situation was for the German Protestants in 1629, describing how people were in distress, constantly calling on God to help them. Eventually, God sent a hero from Mitternacht. Mitternacht. Is that the north? To help and protect the German Protestants and the Augsburg Confession from the Catholic threat. And by 1632, he had made sure that the enemies of the Protestants would not cause any more damage. So the Swedish king, seemed to absolutely have had a helping hand in regards to stopping this diabolical Popery to butcher the Protestants. Anyway, let's see. God mit uns is God with us. Okay, there's a footnote. Yeah, God is with us. God with us. God mit uns in German. The word Mitternacht, usually spelled Mitternacht or Mitternacht, literally means middle of the night and refers to Sweden or the north. Gustavus is usually referred to as der Löwe aus Mitternacht, the lion from Mitternacht. Okay, they didn't want to translate the last from the night, from the middle of the night, the lion from the middle of the night. I don't know. Anyway, oh, we have a picture. Wow, the first picture in the book, like 32 pages in. Oh well, actually it says 23, but it says 31 on the other one. I'm not sure what that is. Anyway, so finally we have a picture. And apparently Gustavus is on the left, and we have the papist on the right. And we have him, the candle and all that, Biblias. We have some text to it and all that. Figure 1, the Augsburgische Confession. Finally getting to a picture. Wow. Persecution. So that's the first picture, I guess, that we have. Trying to blow out the candle. And him standing. So, like, do we actually get small? Oh, yeah, okay, we're getting to the pictures. And, like, sadly, the quality of the pictures, if you, in regards of moving in, is not that good. But, if you go to the website, you can find them in pretty good quality. This is actually the third one that about the series. As far as I know, 1, 2, 3 might be another picture, but at least it seems to be one of those that seems to be in regards of the series, or maybe it's another one. I have to further investigate that. But anyway, so finally we are to some pictures here. Another picture. Let's just go a little through some of the pictures here. Okay, I saw, and I guess that must be in regards of the. Oh, yeah, he's dead. Apparently, it seems. But yeah, he did stop the papists, so I guess his mission kind of did succeed in regards of at least stop the papists from. And then later on, we have an agreement with actually his child, which later becomes a heretic. Tend to have some Hebrew letters. No, it seems like it's Hebrew letters. A little hard to see. Not entirely sure if it is. No, maybe it's not Hebrew. Maybe it's letters. 53, 353. I don't know. And we have something. Maybe it was the cities that he held or something like that. I don't know. Some more, but yeah, there's a lot of things to read in regards to the pictures as well. So here we have, this is the first one. This is pretty much the one that put me in the direction of these things. And I pretty much also got translated the thing by ChatGPT, and this is the one that I'm interested in pretty much. This is the second one, and there should be a third one, but maybe it's only like 2. Maybe it was posted like one on the one side and the other on the other side. I'm not sure. Should be some information. That would be one of the things that would be interesting. The perhaps best example of illustrated broadsheets that portray a before and after scenario are the illustrated broadsheet Die Betrachte Stadt Augsburg and die Dutch-Gottesgnacht Eligte Stadt Augsburg. These two broadsheets from a former pair. Well, okay, so I guess it's not a third, there's only 1, 2, I guess. So the first broadsheet portrays the situation in the city of Augsburg during the Papist rule, whereas the second broadsheet portrays the situation in the city after Gustavus. Oh, yeah. So that'll be interesting. Here we have in regard to symbolizing the Jesuits and all that. Yeah, could be interesting if there's some information in regard to who actually made it, but might not be. Yeah. Here we have a third. Yeah, I'm not sure. I have another one here. Well, I guess that will be interesting. And here we have Gustavus again. I think it's typical. It must be Gustavus. Um, I wonder if do they actually not translate? Do he just you know do he just give a or does he actually give the translation of these? That's a good question. It seems more like that he just shows the. Well, we'll see. So let's see here. Yeah, this is just the. So he doesn't translate it, or if we just had the translation of them, we could pretty much conclude our own things, right? Instead of where we have the name of Jehovah, it seems in Hebrew, Yod He Vav He, shining down. It seems to be. Um. Yeah. It doesn't. Many of these broadsheets doesn't seem to be. Yeah. And we have the poop came from the devil and all that. Yeah, that's true. That's not. That's true. Here we have some. But the other one which depicting the two beasts is kind of these other ones seem to be less of interest really. There's just there hasn't really been anything that's like actually I've seen this before. I actually downloaded this with some kind of it was nice to see that you can actually get a lot of these from free now in regards to the place. I don't know why Google wouldn't actually show um that you can actually get these at this website, but Google have its bullshit, keeping things away from like the search engine of Google is absolutely depraved. But yeah, maybe other search engines might have been able to find this scholarly website, not sure, but so here we have some of the planner 53, 52 and all that. So anyway, that will be for further. I think I'll need to take a break from it for now. So what did we get out of it? Well, we read a little, and I don't know how much but we did get 3 images at least, and the website out of reading it. So far so good. So we can take it another time. Yeah, pretty much at this point. We have I guess 1/3 of it, and then of course we have a lot of images. So yeah, we used pretty much nearly 80% of the battery of the mobile. Yeah, pretty much sucks it dry. Yeah, I feel like we just read a lot of the same thing over and over and over and over again. Anyway, this section will be maybe I'll update the what it's actually called in regards to this as well, and get the images at this place as well. Maybe with the translated text, we'll see. I do have the translate. I did make the AI actually translate it into a pretty good translating thing and all that. It did seem to do a pretty good job. But now that I have it even in a better quality, I can probably just make ChatGPT check it out again, and just have it, check if it's actually, yeah, and get that fixed. So we pretty much have another door into some of these things, so that's nice. Found out in regards of the German king and all that, and he actually has a lot of goody things to say. Actually, he says, "Oh, that's in Danish. I didn't get it in English." But I did ask ChatGPT to give me some quotations from this king, Adolphus, and or Gustavus, whatever you want to call him, and he has some pretty goodies. That's like 20 things of lots of goodies. Sadly, it's not in English, but it's so good. I don't think there's anything I would disagree with in regards to these 20 things that is said to be. Of course, this is Chat GPT, so you have to be careful and all that. But it does seem to be going. Doesn't seem to be anything that. All of it is pretty much good. Every 21 of these, as far as I know, are pretty good and pretty spot on in regards to truth. It's very concentrated and there's a lot of wisdom in it. Pretty nice. Anyway, I would like to actually have it in English, but in regards to ChatGPT, you only give so and so many and all that, and then you can't use it, but you have to wait and all that, and before you can actually use it again. Okay, the new version anyway. I don't know if they will actually change that at some point, but at the moment you get like 9 or 10 or something like that with ChatGPT, and then you have to wait, and you can use it 9 or 10 times again, and then you have to wait, and yeah, very annoying, but also because the ChatGPT doesn't always do what you want, so I'm pretty new to all this AI thing and all that, but you can get some pretty good sources where if there's a subject you don't know that you can kind of make a door. The AI can actually make a door because it has access to a lot of information, and you might not be able to get that information from others, but the AI seems to not bother much in regards of if it's popular or unpopular. So it just serves you the truth, or the information, so that you can use to further open doors into this world of forgotten information. So, oh yeah, and by the way, the web page for this is called, I'll just write it down so you can see it, Alvin, and then you put like a dividing line in and just a portal, and then .org should take you to the website where you can find, there you go. So if you guys are interested in things, seems like to be an interesting portal of different kind of things, and you can also find the some of those images that in better quality, pretty high quality actually. If you search on, we can try it out. Let's see. What did I search? Augsburg. Okay, let's go see if we can find. Search here. Augsburg. Like Augsburg, something of this nature. So if you search on Augsburg, I have some notation. Maybe there's some Protestant things as well. Anyway, so here you have results. It's just stupid. Just give me the maximum. Just give me all of it. Stop with the bullshit of the clicking game. I hate the clicking game. Anyway, you should be able to find it somewhere here in regards of really good quality. Someplace. It is someplace. It is in here someplace. So, someplace. There we go. There we go. That's the main one. And we also have this one. Oh, I guess you can also search on Planner 045, 043. I guess you could just pretty much find all of them, I guess, if you just search on Planner. I guess, maybe. Planner 3? Maybe that could be. Anyway, if you push, you can kind of, there you go. And you can download it in a pretty good quality. So that took some time to find. And here we have the location and this and that. Public domain mark, known copyright and all that. Anyways, just try to search on planner. If we actually just get the whole series, at least we get a good amount of them, it seems. And thereby you would be able to find them in very, very good quality. And it might actually also lead you to something else, Who knows? And again, when you find a door into a subject, sometimes that's the door for further gathering information on getting more information about a subject. The same thing with the Jesuits. I knew the Jesuits and the Roman papists was working in the Nordic nations, and yet searching on different search engines and all that, I just couldn't find anything about it. Nothing. I just couldn't find anything until I found out about Klosterlasse and the Gerben trial. And that was in regards to Christian the Fourth, Then you get into, that's the direct key into the subject. Oscar Garstein, and regards to historian, Andreas Brandrud, and the last, collection of, what was it? Can't remember his name, but anyway, Kohlroth's thing, Anyway, if you have some of these words, it's kind of a direct key into the subject, So if you know Klosterlasse, if you know the Gerben trial, it's a direct key into the subject, and then you can just go from there, because if you have those keys, it gets you to many other sources, or well, at least a good amount of sources. You would think that maybe, if you think about how important the topic actually is, that there would be a lot more information out there, but anyway, but even with what there's still a lot of information for years and years of reading and studying and regards of things. So it's, even if there isn't like a, huge, gigantic amount of information, there's still a good amount of information still on it. So you can just keep on going for many years. And of course, new things will pop up and all that. So of course, it's history as well. So in some sense, there's a lot of, but in regards to the topic of the Jesuits directly, it's not that much totally, and the Counter Reformation and all that. But there are absolutely, books on it that can keep you going. But and there's more than enough information that you will never, you shouldn't be complaining about not. It will still take a long time to get through all the information of what is already there. So it should be more than enough to further get into it. Anyway, so here we have the primary thing that I was interested in, that I seemingly now have found in a very, very good quality, and it's free. I don't get it, Why is it that Google didn't point this source out, instead of all these other sources of, when you can just go directly to a source where, yeah. Oh yes, maybe this is actually the primary source that all the others are taking it from, Anyway. What is this? 2 and 3 hit 1 of 70. Oh, okay. So if one can actually figure out in regards of what this kind of thing is called. This is something in regards to the Jesuits, it seems. They're Jesuit, something of that nature. I guess we don't have translate. It's just if he actually, if the guy he actually, the guy that wrote that book, right? He talks about in regards to translation and all that, but it didn't seem like there was any translation. Or maybe he just translated for himself and did. But why talk about in regards to translating and all that if he didn't put it into his? I just I and in regards to correcting things that you would expect that there would be that his translations for each of these was actually there, but I'm not so sure that actually, but well, we'll see. Anyway, there you go. I think it's time to take a break, but yeah, there you go, and you can get the text as well and all that. Taking years and years and years, and then after getting there's like hours and hours and hours, days, and pretty much it's a long, long, long time it has taken to further dig into these things. And it's the same thing as the Protestant music, where they kind of hide things away. It's just, why is it that these things are not? Why is it that these things are only coming forward now? Why is it? It's like when you look into in regards of Protestantism, in regards of like Andreas Karlstadt, and it's like only now that they're actually making a full collection of Andreas Karlstadt, and I'm like, it's like, how long was Andreas Karlstadt? Like that's like nearly 500 years ago, and you haven't made a collection of Andreas Karlstadt. One of the very most important figures of the Reformation, if not the very most. Well, people would probably point out Luther, but Andreas Karlstadt, we have so much to thank Andreas Karlstadt for, and he just got hidden away in history pretty much. So not that many knows about Andreas Karlstadt, the colleague of Martin Luther, that is called the radical. Like it's a bad thing, becoming a radical. While Luther was away, Andreas Karlstadt was running the things, but apparently it became too radical for the prince and Martin Luther. As I understand it, the prince actually ended up calling Martin Luther back to stop Andreas Karlstadt. I don't know, and even if Martin Luther could see that what Karlstadt had done was correct, it's he began to use them. Yeah, we should be careful about the weak and this. It's just terrible letters. That you can read from Martin Luther in regards to that. That was just terrible. Anyway, he should have just supported his colleague, because his colleague just thought that he actually did what Martin Luther would also have thought that was, because they were actually colleagues, and it was, the Karlstadt actually gave the title to Luther, the professor title, and he himself had, as far as I recall, 3 professor titles himself. He was pretty much the guy that was above Luther, in his anyway. Luther came back, and lots of things tended to happen and all that. Oh well. A little tired here. There we go. So as you can see, we went from lower quality to a little better quality, from the DVD to even better quality, and now the absolute good quality with text and all that I can now feed into ChatGPT, and maybe the AI thing that he himself was talking about in regards to translating things and all that. But ChatGPT can also translate things, so and it actually seems to be pretty good at it. So although the problem is in regards of that you can only do like 9, or then you have to wait. Anyway, may Jehovah, that's 3 hours and 23 minutes. Anyway, may Jehovah be with you and Yeshua, most precious pearl. I think I'll take a break now. And the Sabbath is nearly over, the day of rest. And then we have the first day of the week, which starts at sunset. And of course, there's a little time with, it's like there's a little less than an hour, it seems. And after that, I will be ordering some food, I think, so I can get some food. That's just stupidity not to have food in regards to the Sabbath, because you tend to end up thinking about food. That's not good, you know? So yeah. Anything else? I don't think I have much else to talk about. Yeah. We'll take another go, I guess, when I'm going to read a little more of the document and all that. We'll just take a further live stream, I guess it doesn't matter much, in regards of AI and the internet being. The internet has been pretty much been overloaded with material these days, It's just like in the old days, if you made a video and all that, it was kind of special to make a video on YouTube or anything like that, right? And then, of course, they made all this bullshit of money, 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 and advertising, totally ruining further the internet. And now you have all the AI nonsense, which again further ruins the internet, and it's kind of a mess in regards of it all. It's not like the good old days, that's for sure. And you have all the control. It's become so mainstream, and you have Facebook promoting all sorts of evil things, and you can't even edit the people you try to edit, and they will like give you jail time and all that nonsense. It's a madhouse. Of course, in the future, AI will further ruin the internet. So, because it's there, right? And it can be used for a lot of things to just ruin things. And yeah, the possibility. And there's not enough evil people in the world that loves ruining it for everybody else. So, so it's kind of a problem in some way. It would be that hard to tell AI to make multiple user accounts with some kind of emails or whatever, and totally ruin a forum or something of that nature, right? Make multiple fake accounts, and it just, yeah. And it will only get worse as time goes and all that, but yeah. But yeah, here you go. In regards of information, you can just go into Elvin and see if you can find anything of interest and all that. And I don't know if they might have some music sheets and all that. Could be interesting as well if they actually had some good old Protestant music sheets as well. The scholars kind of get, I guess they get it from their libraries and all that, but yeah, it would be nice to just have it released to the public, instead of hiding all the things for themselves. That's interesting. There's a login thing, but you can actually download things even if you're not logged in. That's nice. I do have, there's some Norwegian stuff that I've been looking into, and the problem is that the Norwegian library, you need to have an IP that is from Norway to be able to access a lot of the information. Even if it's not copyrighted or anything like that, it's like, give me a break. So, and actually I talked to a Norwegian guy, and he couldn't access things because he was outside of Norway. So a Norwegian guy, because he was outside of Norway, couldn't access Norwegian sources because of that. It's just incredible disgusting. There's of course ways around and all that, but it just gets tedious to all of us all of the time need to circumvent things and try to this and try to that, and you waste so much time where you could do a lot of other things, So, oh yeah, by the way, I'm not sure if that actually works on this, but let's try. I'm gonna test something, or maybe it was. Oh, I can't remember the link for it. Oh no, I'll just go into the T1 maybe. No, can't even remember. What did I actually call that? Let's see. I should have the link open. Oh yeah, of course. My memory can't remember everything. That doesn't look good. It doesn't seem to work. Yeah, the background works and all that, but it actually should have like a player thing, and that doesn't seem to work. That's not good. I'll see, this cup. Maybe it's the browser. Maybe it's because it's an older browser. Okay, it works here. Why wouldn't it work in regards of the mobile? Anyway, let's try it out.
Now, Romans
It works.
16, verse 17, using the same word that the spies are going to search out the land for.
The pictures are not working either, I can see. There should be a radio picture in regards of this, but as you can see, that's not showing up either. I'll see if I can actually sort that out in regards to a real picture, so it doesn't use so it actually shows up, Wonder actually. Yeah, it is disappointing to see that it wouldn't be working in the mobile mode. Because why wouldn't it be working in mobile mode, That's actually... Oh, it actually works. It does work, okay. In regards to this little thing, that's nice. You never know if it works or not, right? It does seem to work. Nice. Although I have another script that is pretty much better in regards to this, but hey, But yeah, it's sad to see that it doesn't work in mobile mode. At least not on... That's sad. Maybe if it's if we like do like this. Nope, I still don't see anything in regards to it. That's kind of sad, Didn't really. That's as is typical, right? You do something and then you find out, oh, it actually doesn't work with, Okay. Like William Miller as well. That's another thing I would like to read at some point. In regards of his apology and defense in 1845. So, see, he seems to have been a little more honest in regards of it, that he understood that he had made a mistake, At least that, that would be showing some credibility, right? If he actually understood that he was wrong, that's fair enough to accept that at least, okay, I was wrong, right? Another thing is to just build upon an error, error upon error. That's very sad. Anyway, may Yehovah be with you, and use your most precious pearl, and the spirit of truth be in us all. Amen. Take care, all of you.